It's Wednesday, and it means another episode of Wednesday Night Live. And tonight it's an all Australian show. But before I introduce our guest, I want to highlight a comment on our Facebook group page that made my day, made my year. One of our followers, Becky, who is not a smoker and is not a vapor, wrote, inspired by her neighbor was inspired by our show and is now vaping. Bravo. That comment to me means more than 1 million views on our show.
That's awesome.
Just this is what this whole show is about: is helping people better understand this product, showing them that this is a safer alternative. Is always the goal of this channel. So, thank you, Becky, for showing your neighbor our show, and thank God she or he, I'm not sure which it is, started vaping, and hopefully she sees the benefits of it very quickly, like I did, and the rest, some of us here. I'm 10 years, almost 11. Tim is 9, 10
Yep.
years. So on tonight's show, we have Dr. Colin Mendelsohn. I'm going to say it.
Mendelsohn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I knew I
Thank
was going to
you.
get that wrong all night. I'm going to, who just wrote a book called Stop Smoking Start Vaping, The Healthy Truth About Vaping, which we will have links. We'll have links to the book throughout the show tonight in the chat. Also, the one and only Vaping Bogan is joining us. So find a nice, warm, cozy spot, grab your favorite vape and beer, and join our show that is always about the community. Welcome you guys to the show. And let me say hello to this group of guys that work with me every day. And we're going to start off with Mr. Tim there. Tim
Mr.
Swift.
Blurry Face over here. Thanks.
Blurry.
I appreciate you putting
Stop
me.
blowing your vape into your camera.
Dude,
Here we go.
it's ghost vaping. I don't know what's going on. I think it's this crappy camera that I bought or something like that. Other than that, things are good. I'm just trying to get ready for the old fancy holiday that we're going to have in about a day and a half. Muscle through that. So it's been kind of a crazy week. So
Yeah. Did you gift yourself something, Tim?
No, but everybody decided this year they were going to go ahead and give me lots of wine.
Yeah, you can't go
so
wrong.
I've determined I've got a massive drinking problem. I have 3 bottles and only 1 mouth. I don't know how to solve this one, so we'll get through it one way or another.
I don't know if 3 is considered a problem yet.
I don't know, but the thing is, the bottles they gave me are like really cool looking. So it's almost like when you go to a really nice restaurant and they give you a fancy dinner, like the presentation is amazing. It's like I don't want to open them because like one's like totally like dipped in wax and stuff. So I'm like,
okay.
I don't want to disturb it. It might just end up being a 100-year bottle of wine. I may never touch it.
And our other gentleman from Australia that makes the trio, Mr. Paul. How's your week going, buddy?
So far, so good. Just paperwork as usual.
Paperwork.
That's all I've been doing. Paperwork and replying to emails.
Did you get your prescription in the mail yet?
Here we go. Here we go. No,
Do you need the doctor to write you one?
no, I'm fine for a prescription.
Do you need to
I know
send
a guy.
them a
I know a guy
semen
that might be able to
sample
help you out
or
with
blood sample?
Oh, what am I needing blood samples for all of a sudden? What the hell have I done?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're getting over there. It's a whole new world. You guys may be setting up the new factor of what vaping will be like to the rest of the world with us all having to get a prescription.
I hope not.
I hope not.
Please.
I'm with Bogan.
Please,
I hope
no.
not.
Please don't say that. Please don't.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that why I think that's possible, only because there's a lot of money involved in that as far as healthcare and pharmaceutical companies will bank if it goes pharmaceutical, if it goes prescription. Let's say hello to the guy in the coldest place in the world right now, Wisconsin. Tom.
Yeah. How's it going, everybody? It's currently 9 degrees here.
Fuck that.
For the Aussies watching, that's Fahrenheit, so that's like
Yes.
well below
Yeah.
0.
0.
It's cold as hell. We'll just leave it at that.
It's cold as hell.
And my birthday was
Wow.
yesterday. so
Oh
I
yeah,
had-
I got a
Happy
happy birthday
birthday.
thing going.
Thank you.
Well, I'll ask you now, Tom,
Okay.
before we get started. Would you like us to sing you happy birthday?
God, no. I've heard
Okay.
you sing
Wait, you're
that.
not supposed to ask him. It's like a restaurant where your friend like secretly goes and gets the waiters and waitresses to come up and do their stupid little clappy clappy. You should have just started.
It
No.
may come.
I will leave.
And let's say
unless
hello.
we have enough beer.
Are you done, Tom? You done?
No.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I did get myself a Christmas present.
Yes, you did.
Birthday present. This wonderful book. I've read through a little bit of it. Very well written. Luke, it is not warm. Shut up. And yeah, I just been having fun, enjoying being 42.
42.
God, you're a young
Oh,
buck.
yeah, I remember
I know.
that.
And I didn't mean, no pun intended. You do have You do have horns
Yes,
on the
I do.
top of your head, but
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would like it if nobody stares at my rack, please.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Wow.
it's a
Rack
good
is
year,
here.
though. We all know
You're
that.
right.
Look at the rack on Tom.
It's going to be a good
And-
year.
All right, and let's say hello to the good doctor joining us. And are you in New Zealand or Australia?
Australia, John.
Australia.
Sydney, Australia.
This was the all Australian show. I was
Yeah,
just
but I
looking
saw
at the
some
caption.
I saw some little blurbs in certain websites and posts saying New Zealand, so I wanted to absolutely make positively sure. There it is. Oi, oi, oi!
Clear it
My
up.
Australian hat. Just to
That's
be
perfect.
Come on, Ozzy, come on,
No
come on.
confusion.
How are you doing, doctor?
I'm very, very well, thanks. Looking forward to a bit of a break over the new year. It's been a tough year for you guys as well as for us. Also,
That's an understatement.
yeah. Oh my God.
I haven't been looking into how it's been there. Is it slowed down a little bit with COVID there? Is it still kind of leveled the same, or is it the new one just
We
kind of?
just got the Omicron. We were doing pretty well, and Omicron arrived, and now we've got record numbers again. But of course, it's much milder, and but it is very contagious. But so the numbers are going up, but the hospitalizations aren't too bad. But we are concerned.
You got to stop letting the Americans in. That's what it is. Stop letting the Americans in.
What did the South Africans brought it over here? It's a fucking.
Yeah.
Those bastards.
Blame the English cricket team.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I could get into that English cricket stuff. I have a store that I go into every day, and I swear to God, I think he's watching the same event, the same game for like
It goes
3 days
for 5
straight.
days.
dude.
Well, that's
5
because they
days.
are for 3 days straight, John.
Try 5.
It's not like
Yeah, there.
where,
See,
where it's over.
right? Yeah.
5
It's
days.
either the most amazing, skillful, and absorbing game, or it's like watching paint dry, depending on whether you are used to it or not.
I would rather watch paint dry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it looks fun. And the man himself, Mr. Vaping Bogan, how are you doing this evening?
This afternoon, I'm good. Yeah, I'm fucking sweet. All ready for Christmas. Ready for a little break.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got beautiful weather. It's great down here in Australia. Yeah, we love Christmas time. It's barbecues.
Yeah, you
and
get the opposite.
beaches and it's fucking good. It's a good time.
We talked about it with Paul a couple episodes ago about just Christmas in 150-degree weather.
Yeah,
It
just
doesn't-
rubbing
doesn't-
it into the guy in
does
the
it-
cold country.
Does it feel? Do you get that feeling? But you're so used to it because you've lived there. You your whole life. You know what Christmas is. You know what the weather's going to be like. Do you
It's
do you
very
ever?
confusing as a child because all the books and American cartoons, it's like snowing, and stories of English children unwrapping presents in snowy weather, and you're just like, what the fuck is this about?
Mom, can I go swimming now? Well, we're going to do a toast and tell me if I am wrong on this toast. Cause I looked, I'm Italian. We Italians have a certain toast that they say when they're among friends and they're having a drink. Every country has their toast. So if this is wrong, you guys tell me I'm wrong, but it goes cheers, big ears. Same goes big nose.
Well, that's one of them, but cheers, big ears, here's the Queers and Buccaneers.
Okay, there we go. So I wasn't sure on that one. I Googled it to make sure it was correct.
He
Because-
Googled.
I Googled it.
He's
And
Googling.
I think Bogan's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has some connectivity issues.
Yeah, he's frozen. But I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that's a legitimate in the bar among friends toast. Is it?
Oh, it is.
It
Yeah.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I say it
not-
right?
not-
Did I say it right, Paul?
Yeah.
cheer- Big ears. Cheers. Big
Yeah,
ears.
cheers,
Same go.
cheers, big ears, here's the Queers and Buccaneers.
I wasn't going to go there, but it says big nose. Same goes.
Yeah,
big
well,
nose.
You got the
Yeah, well,
PC
that
Googled
goes.
version.
I got the Google
Yeah.
version, the
Yeah,
PC
you got the
version
PC
of it.
Googled version.
Yeah.
Well, since
But we've all got.
this works out perfect because we were going to start out with the good doctor first. So let me introduce you. Let me introduce our first guest, Dr. Colin Mendelsohn. I'm gonna get that wrong.
Mendelsohn.
Mendelsohn.
There's an L in there, buddy.
I know, but I look at it and I get it wrong every time in my head for some reason. Graduated as a doctor from the University of Sydney with honors, works as a general practitioner for nearly 30 years with a special interest in smoke cessation. He is the founding chairman and director of the Australian Tobacco Harm Reduction Association. He has served on the NSW Health Advisory Committee and on electronic cigarettes. He has also written and published a new book called Stop Smoking Start Vaping, The Healthy Truth About Vaping. I could go on and on, Colin, so many things that you've been involved in when it comes to harm reduction. So let's just say you are one busy man, and we are honored, really honored to have you on the show tonight. Welcome to the show.
Much,
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Look, I've had an interest in smoking right from the beginning of my medical career. It's just one of those areas where, as a doctor, if you can help someone to quit smoking, there's not many more things you could do that are more helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a very frustrating area to work in, not just for the smoker, but for the doctor. Success rates are so low. And that's why I found vaping so exciting, because I've been following the research very carefully, but in my own practice, just seeing so many people who have tried repeatedly every other treatment stop like that. Not everyone, but so many people who could never stop have stopped with vaping. And it's the biggest advance we've had in at least 15 years. And yet there's so much opposition to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day when you approach the non-smoker and he sees you smoking and you talk about quitting. Why do you think the first thing that comes out of the non-smoker's mouth is just quit cold turkey?
Yeah.
Just cold turkey.
Yeah. They just don't get it. They just don't get it, do they? And look, everyone knows someone who could do that.
Right.
And everyone's different. And you can't compare one person's experience to another. We all have different genetics and environmental factors. But for some people, for many people, it's the hardest thing they'll ever do. And the people who quit on their own think everyone else should be able to do it like that. And it just doesn't work that way.
It's funny. It's almost, sometimes I feel like it's almost at the point where people don't realize that it is an addicted substance. We used to think it was just a matter of weak willpower. And that was the dominant theory for a long time. Now we're much more aware of the addiction issue, and that is the dominant explanation. And we know that it's a combination of the nicotine and the whole behavioural ritual, and that's why vaping's so successful. It's the only treatment that actually works on both key elements of the smoking behaviour. Yeah, you're getting all the sensations. Just to help some of the people that are watching, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got into this field. Because, I mean, this is not a field a lot of doctors choose to get into.
No, there's very few doctors in Australia that have an interest in smoking. I was asked I went to a workshop on smoking as a doctor, and I was asked after the workshop whether I'd like to be involved in helping with other future workshops. And I became very involved and did a lot of teaching and become involved in research and writing and advocacy and so on. And it just built up from there. It's a very addictive field, Yeah. I mean, it's been very hard for me to not be involved because there's so much to gain. If you can help someone to quit smoking, you can reduce their chance of dying by, at least 50%. And there's not many things you can say that about in medical practice.
Oh. And again,
Now, did you have growing up? Did you have family? I'm assuming you had some family members. Yeah.
So my father was a smoker, and he was a doctor, and he knew he shouldn't be. He kept having one problem after another. Died from cancer from smoking. My wife's father also died from cancer from smoking. And I mean, everyone smoked in those days, but that does leave a mark. But I must say, I think my interest really just grew out of seeing patients die in my practice, people who had planned to quit, had tried to quit repeatedly, and died unnecessarily, often at a young age, whose lives could have been saved, or the deaths could have been delayed by many years if they'd been successful.
Right.
So that was probably the main driver for me.
Nice. I have one more question I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to let the boys jump in there. You are the founding chairman and director of the RACGP, the Australian National Smoke Cessation Guidelines. Can you talk a little bit about that group and the guidelines?
Yeah, so I'm actually on the expert advisory committee. So we developed the College of GPs National Smoking Guidelines. So I've been on that committee helping to form the guidelines on how to quit smoking. One of the problems is that my views on smoking are very different to the views on vaping, are very different to the views of most people. And there's been a lot of argument about the angle we should take with the Australian guidelines. In the end, the evidence, I think, had to win because it is an evidence-based set of guidelines, and the guidelines support vaping, but in a very cautious way. So they've kind of acknowledged, yes, there's evidence, but we don't want people actually doing this, and we certainly don't approve of it.
Yeah.
So that's where the guidelines are at the moment, and they're used as a reference regularly in Australia.
Yeah, you must be the oddity in that group then when you bring up.
Yeah, I am.
Tell me you're not alone.
I'm pretty much alone. Yeah, I mean, I work with Alex Wodak, who's very well known for his international harm reduction campaigning over the years, and Joe Kosterich. So we formed, a group of doctors formed the Australian Tobacco Harm Reduction Health Promotion Charity, because we wanted to get the right information out to vapers, smokers about vaping, because there's so much misinformation. And look, there's 3 of us in this association. It's very hard to get doctors on side with vaping in Australia. And
I mean, that's what I find interesting. I mean, you guys, you're all doctors that are in this group, so you guys are all about the science and what goes into it and how it, So for me, it doesn't. I don't understand how, unless it's money driven, why one doctor he smiles when I say, but would that he has the science, he sees it there, he can see how this could be a product that would work. Yeah. And not to at least kind of look into it. I mean, are the other 2 kind of interested in what you're talking about, or did they just blow you up? Okay.
The other 2 on our harm reduction charity are. But the doctors in Australia, I mean, the research internationally shows that doctors get their information about vaping from the media and from talking to patients. So they're not going through the medical journals, reading the information that most of us are familiar with. So they're getting the negative messaging from, in Australia, from all our health departments, all our health charities, most medical associations and public health associations, which have basically formed a dominant narrative that vaping is too risky. Yeah. And so everyone the doctors get that negative messaging, and they're kind of very conservative, and they just accept that. And they haven't got time to look at the medical journals and form their own views. So that's just the narrative that's followed.
So it really comes down to just lack of being able to put the effort into looking into deeper evidence to substantiate a more informative decision on their own behalf. They would just much rather listen to outside source like that.
Yeah, look, I think if the National Medical Research Council, which is our peak health body, the health departments, the AMA, and the Cancer Council all say, we don't have enough evidence, there are risks, the kids are all doing it, it's a tobacco company ploy, and what about the long-term harms, and all the usual arguments, they kind of, why wouldn't they believe it? They haven't got time to go through all the evidence. They must think that these organisations know what they're talking about. And of course, they have vested interests, and there are all sorts of other factors behind the position they've taken.
Is there any sort of, I don't want to call it bullying outside influence, but do they take, is there any funnel back to, say, the WHO, FCTC, or anything like that, where like governing bodies that, quote unquote, like leading health organizations that are kind of in that treatise with multiple countries to kind of follow that guidance.
Yeah, well, no, well, they would say that, yeah, the WHO is often quoted. So the WHO says this, so of course they must be right.
Yeah.
They kind of seem to be an automatic authority on this subject, and of course we know much better than that. So, when all these organisations, and that's what they typically come up with, well, we don't support this because, well, look, who doesn't, and this organisation doesn't, and that one doesn't. So GPs generally accept that.
Yeah, I guess where the big irony moment for me is that even the WHO endorsed vaping at one point in time.
Right.
Like they actually stood behind it till some degree. I mean, not wholeheartedly, but then now they completely changed their attitude, and now everyone follows that line of thinking.
And again, that's where the funding also comes in. I mean, in Australia, tobacco taxes are our fourth biggest tax.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if the government chose to support vaping, there'd be a huge hole in the budget.
Right.
So, there are all sorts of issues behind the scenes. They come out with reasons why we shouldn't vape, but behind the scenes, there's other stuff going on.
I've heard that statement said here by a friend of mine saying, well, if they didn't have that MSA money, they're going to get it somewhere else. And I'm like, well, then let them go get it somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if the money isn't spent on smoking, it'll be spent on something else. The money will still be there.
Yeah.
It'll go on to goods that are taxed, and the money will come to the government anyway.
Yeah,
It certainly shouldn't come from vaping, which you've been through this. That's absurd to tax vaping at the levels of tobacco.
Yeah, I'm sure there a lot of e-liquid companies here in the U.S. would be more than happy to be regulated to a limit where it's still substantial to run a company and still make a profit and still stay functional, and not completely close your doors and just be done with it because tobacco is getting $1.50 to $2.50 per pack. We're getting, you can get that. We're not saying, I mean, that's the thing. We're not saying don't regulate us, don't tax us. Yeah, you can regulate this industry, you can tax this industry, but don't take it to the point where you're going to actually wipe it out because the average Joe who's making, $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year, that are a lot of times the people that are the ones that are dying from smoking cigarettes can't afford to buy the vape and go back to smoking cigarettes. It's ridiculous.
Look, I think everyone would agree that the industry should be regulated.
Right.
And we all agree with that. And look, the Royal College of Physicians in the UK says, well, the tax should be proportionate to the risk. And so they would say the tax should be about 5% of tobacco. There's no reason why it should be more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is to incentivize people to make the switch. I mean, if we're interested in public health, we want people to change and we want to encourage them financially. In Australia, there's a big difference. Australia has the most expensive cigarette prices.
Right. You guys are insane. I mean, I asked Bogan, would you be happy to have some regulations, but not just regulations through the government, but to say two independent bodies regulating that industry in Australia to where it's fair and legitimate? You know what I mean? Where it's a group that's run by the government.
Vapers would be totally fine with a sensible regulation. It's like Colin's saying, a 5% of the tobacco tax would be totally livable. It would be still way cheaper than smoking. And, Colin's probably already touched on it, but you've got pensioners that are spending 75% of their income just on cigarettes. It's insane. And they're still going to spend that money. They're going to be spending it on things they should be spending it on, which is food and heating their homes in winter and stuff like that, and eating properly. So we're not opposed to it, and the TGA would probably be the body that would set those sorts of regulations. The tax obviously would be done differently, but none of us are opposed to regulation. Yeah. But when you are making it harder and making it more expensive and less accessible than tobacco, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes zero.
Can I just jump in though, Sam? Because I think that shouldn't be under the TGA because they regulate medicine.
Well, that's true. Exactly. It should be a consumer product, so it should really fall under the ACCC and things like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
it's a consumer
Because
product.
they regulate all consumer products, and they have standards of safety and quality that they impose, and they have recall systems, and they have monitoring systems. And there's no reason why vaping couldn't be under a similar kind of model.
It's an electronic device.
Right.
If you have problems with your TV and the retailer is not coming to the party in terms of sorting out an issue, you go to the ACCC. It should be no different with your electronic cigarettes. It's the same sort of thing.
But
It's
still
ridiculous.
have an age limit.
Of course.
Yeah,
18, just like
100%.
smoking.
Yeah.
Yep. And we would be fine if they even limited it to vape stores, if just vape shops were the places that you could get these products. I think it really should be available everywhere cigarettes are available.
I agree.
Get it from a servo, get it from a corner store. Anywhere cigarettes are available, you should be able to get vapor products. But even if they didn't do that, if they really wanted to just kind of make sure that they had a limited area to regulate, the vape shops would do a great job of regulating themselves and making sure that you're not having dodgy deals being done to under 18s.
Right. Well, the convenience store is the impulse buy. It's that guy that's standing in line, and not having them in those convenience stores, I think, would hurt that impulse buyer.
You're trying to reach the smoker. Where does the smoker go? He goes to the places he buys his smokes from, or she buys his smokes from, or whatever. So yeah, it should be everywhere. But we're happy to find some sort of a negotiated, common ground, or we're happy to work with the government. But when they're trying to make it a prescription, it's ridiculous. It's way out of proportion.
Paul is chomping at the bits over there. I'm gonna let Paul speak.
No, quick question, and this goes to both Sam and Colin. Can either of you see any changes in the regulatory framework now that we have the prescription model in play? And will the changes come next year after we have our first, as they put it, inquiry into it again to see how many prescriptions have actually been written? Or will it come later after more pressure both from political and from the consumer?
Yeah, well, my view is that they've kind of locked this in now and they're not going to backpedal on it. But we do have an election early to mid next year, and most likely there will be a new government, which actually is more opposed to vaping. The Labor Party government is more opposed to vaping. So I think this will all change, but they're going to have to feel that they've given this a run. And it's not really working because patients need a prescription. It's illegal to possess nicotine. It's a criminal offence to possess it in Australia without a prescription. In fact, the fine for bringing it into Australia is $222,000.
That's some bucks.
And it's a criminal offence to possess it. But doctors aren't prescribing it because doctors are not trained. To them, it's a whole new paradigm, and they don't know anything about it. So it's very hard for people to get prescriptions. And a lot of vapors, we're worried, will go back to smoking, we'll go to the black market, we'll just push on without a script and hope for the best. So, you're asking about the number, Paul, of people who have scripts. I suspect there are a few.
Right.
Because there are very few doctors.
Well, do you got guys going around making bootleg copies of prescriptions like they did with COVID cards here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I don't think so yet, but it's still a bit early days. But it
could happen. Could absolutely happen. Not at the moment. But it's like the flavor bans in the United States. I know of a dude who goes to a vape shop that is not allowed to sell flavors. And he's a regular and has been going for a while. So the owners go out the back to the dead stock as such and pick up flavors, and he buys flavors that he shouldn't be allowed to buy. It's a black market already over there, and the same thing will happen here. We've seen it with the war on drugs. It doesn't work. Prohibition, it never works. It creates more problems. It creates a network of an economy, a black market economy. It's going to do the same thing here. It's bananas that we have all this evidence from previous, battles with restricted and unregulated or drugs or whatever. Yet we still go, no, it's a good idea to do prohibition. We're going to make things harder for people. It doesn't work.
No.
The evidence is in
No.
for the last 50 years that when you try and ban and overregulate something, it doesn't fucking work.
No, I mean,
and the people have voted on this too. That's the other thing. Vaping's, in spite of everything, it's the most popular quitting method in Australia, in spite of all those penalties. And as it is in most other Western countries, the number of smokers doubled from 2016 to 2019. And constantly people say to me, oh, look, I found out about this from my friend, and now I've got my brother vaping, because it actually works where other treatments don't. And you can't, the horse is definitely bolted. We have to find a way of riding it.
The genie's way out of the bottle. You try and stuff it back in, and it's not going to work.
Well, it's obvious there in your own country. I mean, how much can you pay for a pack of cigarettes? They keep raising it.
I've been there. I know.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't affect. People are still going to buy.
Pack of smokes.
Yeah, they're still.
No, more now. It's gone up again, actually.
I think it was around 40 Aussie dollars when I was there, and then I made the critical error.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Illegal marijuana is cheaper than
heroin. Heroin is.
I don't know anything about that, but I've heard from friends.
There's Mr. Nick Orlando in the chat there. Hello, Nick. Tommy Boy, you have a question for the good doctor?
Actually, I have one from Miss Morgan Daly.
Oh, go ahead. Hit it.
What do you think it will take for vaping to become a more mainstream option for harm reduction?
Ooh.
Look, I think it was
a $1 million question.
I mean, with harm reduction, and this is what Alex Wodak's always talking about, that he's been involved in many different campaigns, things like needle exchange and, methadone for heroin users. There's hostile resistance to harm reduction for decades often. And finally, people look back and say, well, why did we resist that? Look how good it is. These things do change slowly. And it will happen, but it won't happen quickly. Because the evidence is just too strong, and it will just continue to grow.
Well, here's my opinion question. So, obviously they don't really. I mean, if the doctors in opposition apparently give two shits about everybody's health, why is it that they seem to just sort of like turn a blind eye to the idea that the governments have no problem leaving cigarettes on the market, which we know are a known killer to begin with, and the fact that the governments take the prohibition route and they know that it gets dangerous on the black market side of things. What are they waiting for in terms of that excuse that there's not enough evidence for them to be swayed one way or the other? Is it they just want that, somebody finally died. Somebody really finally died from vaping, and that's going to validate all of their negativity?
Yeah. Oh, they get very excited when there are potential problems. Like we discovered recently, vaping causes erectile dysfunction.
Oh,
That's
right.
That was so.
We concluded everyone on this panel is okay.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. I've forgotten the rest of the question, but
I'll just nutshell it and just say, like, what is it that they're waiting for, or do you think they need to see in order to maybe open their eyes a little bit more and look more towards the side of good?
I don't think there'll ever be enough evidence for some people. So if you believe, for example, that not one child should ever be exposed to nicotine, and it doesn't matter how many lives will be saved in adults, then you're not prepared to negotiate on that. So no matter how much evidence there is, and I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming now, and it's certainly beyond reasonable doubt. I don't think it isn't about the evidence. That's the thing, Tim. I think it's about political issues. Like there's much more risk in banning vaping than there is much more risk in allowing vaping than there is in banning it. There's There's the financial conflicts of interest. There's moral objections. You know, people shouldn't be using addictive drugs. There's a lot of self-interest. There's organisations that are set up to fight big tobacco and smoking, and now they've sort of decided to fight vaping, and you know, it's a threat to their legitimacy. So there's all this other stuff. It doesn't matter how much evidence we come up with. I think it's all the other issues that are behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Colin, I've got one question for you.
No way.
Recently, the president of the AMA came out on Twitter stating that he would like the TGA or the Therapeutic Goods Administration to actually remove the list of doctors that are now prescribing nicotine, calling you guys pop-up clinics. And I went, really? These guys are real doctors. They do know what they're doing. They do know how to write a prescription. And both of us have slammed them on Twitter. But why the hell they wanted the prescription model, them and the RACGP, they got that, they got what they wanted, and now they want that list removed from the TGA website. What the hell is going on?
Unbelievable.
Hold on. I got something for you there, Paul. Hold on. He's right here. There he is. There you go.
Yeah, fuck you.
I think what's happening here is that they've decided they don't want vaping, and it shows you how we can't make any concessions. As soon as you give them a concession, then it's not good enough. Then they want something else taken away, and then they want something else taken away. You know, you think you give them a concession of prescriptions, and you think that'll keep them quiet for a while, but it's never enough. They want vaping banned, so this is just consistent with that. They don't want doctors writing the scripts. Well, they don't want anyone finding out who the doctors are writing the scripts. It makes no sense.
Well, here's my thing. This is what I find odd. Okay, we have the numbers to show how vaping has grown in the last 10 years. If you were just to take those numbers alone and let's be honest, the rich people decide on what's going to continue. Let's say wealthy, very rich people decide what is going to continue on. If I am someone that is an entrepreneur and I see those numbers and I see the benefits of vaping, the profit margin of vaping is a lot higher than smoking, because you're going to have someone that's going to live a lot longer, is going to continue to vape. He's not going to die from cancer. He's not going to die. I guess I'm sorry, I can't say that, right? Can I say that, guys?
What?
I guess I'm nobody.
You can say whatever you want.
I can say whatever the fuck I want, but that's what I don't understand. What kind of numbers does our government need to see for them to say, okay, this is better than, because honestly, it's dollars. It's all dollars. I mean, what is it going to take for them to finally say, okay, let's look into this vaping a little bit more. We can stop people from smoking. We could stop 480,000 people from dying every year if they were just to vape. Did I kind of make sense?
All they have to do is get out of the way and let people do it.
Thank you.
It costs them nothing. Yeah, but they will lose tax, but they will earn that money in other ways. I mean, one of the benefits of smoking is that people die young.
Yeah.
So they pay their taxes while they work, and then they don't have nursing homes and they don't have chronic illnesses. So it's complicated. The economics of it is complicated, but it really isn't it's a public health issue.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be basing our decisions on the economics.
Well, the thing is, I always bring this question up to a lot of people since I've done this show, because I remember myself sitting down watching, I don't know, I'm going to date myself, but most of us remember who Phil Donahue is, right? Some of us remember who Phil Donahue is. Yeah, sure, Colin. But he had the representatives of Blue on his show. He was praising this product when it first came out. This was revolutionary. This was going to save all these people. It's the thing all the smokers were looking for. And then all of a sudden it went from that to this is going to kill you. You're going to get popcorn lung. Your dick's not going to work anymore. All this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the problem with Blue, of course, it was a tobacco company, I think, and I think that's one of the it became a tobacco company. That's one of the arguments used against vaping, that it's just another tobacco company's strategy to
Well,
hook
in
more
the
kids
beginning,
in
Blue
people
was
smoking. It wasn't
yeah,
tobacco.
yeah,
No.
it wasn't. I mean, Blue sold out. I think they looked at the big picture and realized, you know,
Yeah.
what Juul exactly what Juul did. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't understand what happened. That's the thing, and no one can really give me a legitimate answer to why all of a sudden this product that, you know, my mom was like, oh, you got to do this. Look at this. This is working. This people are using this product. It's helping them. And I did. That's the reason I did start kind of using it, you know, and then all of a sudden it went from that to, you know, like I said, you know, it's going to give you popcorn lung. You're going to, you know, this isn't going
Well,
to work.
bad news does sell newspapers. I mean, the media have a lot to be, they're responsible for a large part of this. They're very negative, and there's a lot of scaremongering, and I think they've, you know, they've misinformed people. I think that's a large part of it.
It's social media. I mean, I'm trying to think back to when the Blue originally came out, and that show. I think that was in the early heydays of the internet, social media. There wasn't Twitter. There wasn't,
I
you
think
know,
it was MySpace at the time.
it was it was pretty much MySpace.
Mm.
I want to kind of get back to your book. I'm always curious, you know, the process that a writer goes through when he's getting ready to write a book, you know, and obviously from the title of your book, you know, you pretty much picked who you want to read your book there.
Yeah.
Is this a book that not just that the vapor buys or the smoker buys? Is this something I could hand to my aunt and
Yeah.
say, here, read this.
Yeah.
This is going to help you better.
I think it's interesting, the book, because it did develop over a period of time. I firstly thought, I've got to give people the right evidence, the true story about what's behind, what is the evidence in a readable way, so smokers can make an informed choice. And then it became clear that it's very overwhelming for a new vapor how to start vaping. You know, what is mouth to lung vaping? What's nic salt? What's a good starting device? How much nicotine do you need? And so I've got a step-by-step guide to the steps that they need to go through, and explaining a lot of that terminology. What's a coil, and what's VG, and so on. But the third part, which I hadn't intended to write originally, was just what we've been talking about today, is why on earth are we opposed to vaping as a society? Where have we gone wrong? I mean, clearly we have a life-saving alternative here, and yet there's such opposition from so many different sources. So the third part of the book is all about the controversies and where they've come from, and why this opposition exists. And the fact that it isn't based on evidence, I think it's based on all sorts of other things. There's a whole lot of moral psychology about how people make decisions, and vested interests, and how difficult it is to assess risk of things. There's a whole lot written about the difficulty people have in assessing risk, and so on. So I think that part's very interesting, actually. And it goes on to talk about how we should regulate vaping and what the solutions might be for the future. So it does appeal, I think, to a variety of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I went to look for it on Google, 10 other books came up first that were, you know, just your basic quit smoking remedies, you know, nothing to do with vaping. And I was just like, well, you know, hopefully people get to see this book, because yours doesn't come up. As soon as you start typing on Amazon, your title, it goes to that one first book before yours. I forget the name of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they work in funny ways, Amazon. It depends on what you pay and so on. But yeah,
So-
it is available. It is available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. And
So would you say it's more of a self-help book?
I think so. Yeah, it's designed for the smoker, who we all know has tried so many times. Has tried everything. I mean, we now know that vaping is the most effective method. I mean, we've got really good evidence now that the National Institute of Health Research in the UK recently did a review of 177 studies where they looked at all the treatments and decided that vaping was more effective than varenicline or Chantix, and more effective than NRT. I mean, we know that. And it keeps people from relapsing. And so many people find that those other treatments, they try them every year and nothing works. And then suddenly someone mentions vaping and they want to get some information, but it's very hard to get accurate information. If you believe what you read in the media, you'll get popcorn lung.
Right. Popcorn lung.
That's what I encounter the majority of the time. I find myself in a lot of situations and scenarios, like maybe even at the office at work, and you strike up conversation with people that sit near you or around you that have no idea what vaping is involved in vaping, how the device even works, and it's those kinds of conversations.
You go to the Christmas party, you're having a puff, and you get that guy that's like, I've heard that's worse than smoking. And then
in the garage or out in front of the house while he's smoking.
Yeah, that's right. It's worse than smoking, and you'll get popcorn lung, and your hair will fall out in 5 years. I mean,
that's it. That's the other new one as well.
Yeah,
but Sam, going back years ago,
I've been growing this for most of the time that I've been vaping.
That's what I was just about to touch on.
Evidence that it definitely doesn't make your hair fall out.
That's the next one. Yeah, you're gonna go bald. If you keep vaping, you're gonna go bald.
Side effects may include growing a mullet.
Yeah. Your hair will grow on one part of your head. I'll take any hair growth at all, so I don't care. Paul will as well, I'm sure.
Well, I guess my question about the book, though, is obviously you said that the book is for the smoker, but it would appeal to a lot of different people. Do you think that the book could potentially help people in the community who are confronted with those opportunities to try to have open discussion with those who don't know much about vaping, and they could take information from the book and say, and help them to kind of scribe that little speech that they might want to give?
Exactly. I think if someone says to you, "Look, vaping causes popcorn lung," you can open the chapter on popcorn lung and say, "Look, actually, it's caused by this. It doesn't occur in vaping anymore, and it was caused in popcorn. Happened in popcorn factory workers and the Royal, the colleges, the CRUK in the UK, the Cancer Charity says this." So yes, I think it serves a useful purpose in providing responses to arguments that people hear all the time.
Yeah. I didn't get my book yet, so I didn't get to read it yet. But I don't know. Thank you, Amazon. I saw your video. I actually saw the video. I saw Bogan's video of you him interviewing you, and then it said go to your website. I'm like, son of a bitch. Does your book go into how do I put this? Does it go into the reasons why the government doesn't want this working, or certain institutions? Do you stay away from that in your book?
No, I go into that as well. Like there's an article written by a professor from Adelaide in which he says he talks about vaping and government policy, and he says basically government policy is about minimising risk, and they've failed the Australian people, and they haven't put public health ahead of that. So they've just minimised risk, and they've looked at, well, if we do this and do that, which will give us more votes, and that's come up a few times within the book, I must say. So I'm quite happy to point out where I think the issues are coming from, because they're not about the evidence. I mean, when you read the first few chapters on the evidence, I think it's very clear. And you read what Public Health England, the Royal College of Physicians say, NASM in the UK, Health Canada, the New Zealand Ministry of Health, they all come out with very clear explanations, but it gets messy after that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, do you think that, I mean, dare I say, you'd hope that certain countries would look at other countries for, some assistance and guidance, but do you think any of those, does any of that, like New Zealand fully endorsing it?
That was amazing.
The United Kingdom putting vape shops inside of hospitals and things of that nature. Like, why don't they see that and try to wrap their head around why would someone completely
they're all wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'll find out one day. They'll regret that. But what's happened recently is we're in a randomized controlled trial now with New Zealand. So we are restricting vaping. In New Zealand, they're encouraging it. And you know what happened in New Zealand in the last 12 months? Their smoking rate fell by 20%.
That's
Right.
insane. That's a big number.
20% since their new legislation. Australia's smoking rate fell by 19% in 6 years.
Right.
So, and it's only going to get,
Wow.
that difference is only going to get worse and worse. They're aiming for a much lower smoking rate than we are. And they may well get there with this new package, this very bold package they've introduced, which supports
Yeah,
vaping.
well, and they're trying to they said they're hoping to phase cigarettes out by a certain
Yeah.
By
New Zealand.
2025.
You won't be able to, if you were born after 2014, I think, is it?
14, yeah.
You
I mean,
won't be able to buy cigarettes.
This does raise issues about prohibition and personal rights and so on. I get that. That's controversial. But, overall, it's a package, and there's no question they're being much more progressive than we are. And I think we're going to see the difference. And how long can you wait?
Yeah.
It means people are dying unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to see the evidence very clearly.
I think countries like New Zealand, where it isn't a product that is grown there, I think can easily do what they're doing. I think it gets a little more difficult when you start talking about China, the U.S., and other countries where tobacco is because New Zealand, I'm sure that I'm guessing they don't grow tobacco out there. I'm assuming
Well, we don't in Australia. I don't think they do in New Zealand. I'd be very surprised.
I know they're real
No.
strict about what
Paul
comes in.
would know.
Australia.
He's up on that, aren't you? We don't grow anything here, do we, Paul?
No,
Oh,
not
we don't
anymore.
here.
No,
we
not
definitely don't
anymore.
here.
Yeah, because
No,
all
it
of
was-
your nicotine or tobacco, I mean, your stuff out there comes from Asia. So somewhere in Asia, correct? Are you getting American grown tobacco out there? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, no, we are.
Mostly
We are.
from India.
If you
And
do, it's
India
way
as
priced.
well.
It's way priced high. If you are actually getting American grown tobacco there, I'm sure it's $80 a pack.
No.
Actually,
No. You know how much it costs to make a packet of cigarettes in the US?
A pack of cigarettes down the street from my house right now are
No,
$8.
you know,
No, make
No,
it. Actually,
manufacturing.
Right.
Oh,
What does it cost for them to make a packet wrapped in a box with cellophane?
yeah.
I haven't the
No
first
idea.
clue.
I have no clue. I have
30 cents.
Wow.
30
Wow.
cents. And
Good
they sell it
gravy.
for about $2.50, and then all the markup comes on then, including the tax markup as well, but 30 cents. So they want to keep making cigarettes. It's tobacco companies. They actually make much more money. It's a monopoly.
Yeah.
To which people are addicted, and
I think it's a
There's
monopoly
very high
between the
barriers to
tobacco and healthcare system. It's just a circle of life that goes through there.
Well, that's what I've said for a long period of time, is that I think one of the other inherent differences is private versus public health care.
Yeah.
I mean, we thrive. I mean, people thrive on the private healthcare system here, and if they can't keep you sick and addicted, then they kind of the business ends for them. You know what I mean? Other than somebody falling down and breaking their leg. But I'm just saying, in the sense of when you say, okay, smoking's readily available, it would seem that in a private healthcare system like our own,
Wow.
they benefit from people dying and having cancer and all the other complications from smoking. I'm not saying they're thrilled about it. I hope they have a conscience as a human being, but it would seem like they are happier that way than being like, oh, this guy started vaping. He's got nothing wrong. His lungs are clean. He's coming in. He's getting his copay done, and he's walking out, and he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there
the
are
different-
vested interests. That's right. There are vested interests.
The difference here in Australia is when the Australian government actually brought back all the tobacco licenses from the growers, and they got rid of it back in 2004 to 2006. But tobacco and tobacco taxes were always left in the budgets, and every year or bi-yearly now it goes up by 12.5%. Originally it was once a year, but now it's bi-yearly. New Zealand, they're allowed to grow their own tobacco naturally, but from my understanding, there's no major tobacco crops anymore in New Zealand as well.
All right, I'm going to kind of swing over to Bogan here a little bit. Before we get into questions, I want to say thank you to you for what you do for this community. You're one of the very few reviewers that is still talking advocacy during his videos. Even just a hardware review, you throw it in there, and we appreciate you and what you do for this community and the industry. I hope the industry realizes that you're one of those guys that they need to pay attention to when it comes to advocacy. And we just want to say thank you for being on our show tonight.
No, thanks for having me. I don't do enough advocacy in the hardware stuff. I do.
You kind of throw it in there. You throw it in there. I watch your videos.
At the end a little bit. Doesn't matter what you
it does.
vaping on.
Hey,
But I mean, I don't do the whole hit this website, hit that website. Nick does a much better job.
Right.
No,
yeah.
Of the advocacy. He's the
We-
god of
we appre-
vape review advocacy. But I feel like we all have an obligation, particularly if we're lucky enough like me and Nick to make a living out of making videos, to preserve the industry as best we can. We're all getting pressure, whether it's in the United States or here in Australia.
Right.
There's a pressure from the powers to be. So we've got to fight to keep this thing going and keep getting smokers off of durries.
And the one thing we do with a lot of the reviewers that are on our show is we go way back. We go back to your first video, September 14, 2014. Are you ready
Yep.
for this, people?
Oh, goodness me.
Wow. You look super young in that video.
Yeah.
You don't have
Look
the
at that.
mullet going.
little
Watch out,
baby
you cats.
stash, no neck tattoos.
Yeah.
Now,
Too
I'm going
funny.
to ask you a question here.
Oh wow.
Knowing what you know today about the industry, if you could go back to 2014 to that Bogan right there, what the hell would you tell him?
You need to change that voice sooner than you did. I don't know. I don't know whether I'd do a whole lot differently, to be honest. I kind of just did me. I did my thing. The whole voice had to evolve because I couldn't fucking keep that shit going. For fucking ever this way. It had to change, but it had to evolve somewhat. But I don't think I would change really how I've done things. I think I've always tried to be myself, but also try and represent the industry. Maybe not in the most clean language light or anything like that, but I think in terms of the products that I talked about and the advocacy and stuff like that, I don't think I would change any of that. The industry has obviously changed a lot since then. Back when I started, it was you could start a channel and get a following. These days, I feel really sorry for any of the people in the community that want to start a review channel because, man, the way YouTube throttles our videos with demonetization and now pretty much everything is 18 plus restricted, you have a real hard time growing your channel and getting a following. So, we're lucky for the guys that have been doing it for as long as I have in that we've built a solid base. But if you're new, it's a lot harder. It's not really fair. We're trying to get the word out about a consumer product that helps people make a healthier choice. And YouTube, unfortunately, is making that a lot more difficult to get those videos out. They're just not popping up on people's feeds like they used to. But, we push on, we keep fighting, and we keep doing our thing.
Now, if Dr. Collins wants to start a YouTube channel, what advice are you going to give him to get his message out for his book?
I do have a channel, and
I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah.
But we're talking to the legend here. He's going to give you an insight.
You can always add beer. Adding beer seems to work. Like it worked for me.
I like to say, I have in my book, I have a reference to resources where people can learn more, and one of them, of course, is the Vaping Bogan channel. But I do have a language warning on that one. So if you're sensitive in any way,
shots and beers with the doctor. Shots and beers with the doctor. That's your next channel.
I think that's what's great about the YouTube vape review community is there's something for everybody. There's your crazy fucking rip trippers style where everything's fucking cowboys and let's go.
Yeah.
And you've got me that, you know, likes
What's
to
his
just sort of-
line? Come on, Bogan. What is his line about? Hits
well,
like a
he's got a few, you know, RDA.
no. Where's the
My
one
favorite
that
one.
hits like a truck full of what?
Oh,
Dildos.
Yeah.
But you know, there's something for everybody. There's people in Australia who is, you know, a little bit of an import, but we've got Vaping Legion, who's a lot more, and I think someone that also got a mention in Colin's book because he's a little bit more you know, language friendly and you know, a little bit more subdued in the way that he delivers the information, but he's still getting out that vital consumer product review. So there's a good spread, you know. There's a good spread across the community, and it's great to still have so many guys doing videos, and still, you know, new guys popping up and doing their thing. Even if you're only reaching 100 people a video with 100 views, that's still 100 people that are being educated about products that are safer than tobacco.
No, yeah, I mean that's what I'm amazed. You know, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, that just that one statement from our viewer letting us know that her neighbor started vaping because of our show. That's awesome. I don't care if we never get a million views. That to me is more important than a million views to all of us, Tim, Tom, and Paul.
Absolutely.
That's more important than anything. Um, who did you start out watching? I'm kind of curious who you started out watching out there, because some of our videos are limited there, correct? Or were they all available to you?
They were all back then because, you know, I started vaping beginning of 2014. I started the channel in September, as you already mentioned. So I started with the old school guys. You know, I watched a lot of Phil Basado, fucking 45-minute, hour-long videos where he's testing the pressure of a switch in pounds per fucking this, and you know, he's going through every minute detail. So I watched a lot of Phil. Watched a lot of you know, Mark Todd, obviously, you know, Grim Green. There was a UK guy who's no longer doing videos, but he was really good guy called Scott. He had a channel called I Gotcha 69. And he used to blow the best O-rings. I used to love Scott's videos. He could just blow these amazing full O-rings. You know, he wasn't into tricks and stuff, but just part of his videos and his reviews, they were always very good. But he could blow the really good O's. I still can't do it.
Yeah, Phil used to get my dinner ready first. I would go cook my dinner first.
Come back. You'd be at the final thoughts
because it was 45 minutes.
Yeah, Phil was great. And Nick and all those guys, and obviously Mike Vapes, and guys like that. And, you know, for mech mods, there was guys like you know,
your style is your own. That's what I like about your channel, even from that early first video that
that's what I figured. I had to do my own thing, you know, because there was already some guys out there doing their thing, and so I was like, well, you know, some of this is a little boring sometimes, you know, let's try and spice things up and have a little bit of fun. So,
but I think what comes off from your videos is it's your personality, and I think a lot of times with viewers,
just be you, because you know, you can only be somebody else for so long before you know, you can't do it anymore, or people realize
Rip Tripper.
I don't know. I think he's like that. I think
he cannot be like that 24/7.
Well, he does children's content too, though.
Yeah,
I think he would just be like that with his mates, you know.
Yeah,
I can see his wife just telling him,
all right, we're gonna get the barbecue out. We're gonna do some grilling, boys. You know,
this barbecue hits like a truck full of dildos.
You know, I think he definitely got a little more excited. But I remember watching Rip before he really got into the really quick.
The old stuff. Me too.
The old stuff, and he was still, you know, like this Filipino RDA is you know, this mech mod, this MCM, you know. I watched some of his early stuff on mech mods, and you know, he got me into mech mods as well as Lou and some of those guys, and he definitely went more of a commercially sort of friendly and a commercially exportable style. At the end of the day, people can hate on Rip for being, you know, everything's great and there's no negatives and this is just super positive, but he still got probably more than any of us. He probably got more smokers off of.
I credit him for me starting building. I don't think if it wasn't for Rip's videos on building coils, I don't think I would have ever gotten into that part of vaping. And now I'm going to swing it back to the doctor. Did you ever consider asking some of these boys right here, the YouTube reviewers, for information on your book? Did you tie any of that into it at all?
Yeah. No, the book was written by me, but it was involved a lot of information coming from vapors and a lot of
Nice.
vendors that I knew, and I had it reviewed by by Louise Ross from the UK and Professor Wayne Hall from Australia and Alex Wodek, and
Nice.
they reviewed all the material, and so there was a lot of input from a whole range of different sources. Because
Yeah.
obviously, there were certain things I wasn't so familiar with, and which I've been learning about as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you, I'm going to go back. I needed to ask you that question. But I'm going to go back to Bogan. Is the collecting part of this industry gone?
No, I don't think so at all. It's shifted over the years for sure, and as a reviewer, I get to experience more products than most people, and it's definitely evolved. We go through patches where it's MTL RTAs, and then mech mods have gone up and down. When I got into reviewing mechs, were definitely a big thing, and the Chinese companies were starting to do it, and then we had more and more. Then it went through a bit of a lull for a while. Then it kind of came back, and this year I've reviewed more mechanical mods than I have RTAs. They're not coming out of the US. They're coming out of places like Russia and Spain. They're really killing it. The Philippines has never really stopped, maybe slowed down a little bit. Boro devices are the big thing, and so Boros have been there since before I even started vaping. Billet box has been around for so long.
Yeah.
But it's been very much a niche, a small and expensive, exotic, high-end kind of thing. And now you're seeing Chinese companies get involved with people like Tony B, and they're doing their own cheap, affordable Boros. So the collectible side of things has always been there, and it will always be there. It's definitely shrunk a little bit. The hobbyist style,
The hobbyist side of it, yeah.
since 2018, I think was the peak of hobby stuff. In the 2-3 years before that, it was really, really strong.
Yeah.
And then from 2018, it's dipped down. And I think, stuff like the US vape mail ban has really impacted that. Pre-filled pods and disposables have definitely had a big impact. But at the end of the day, people they get mad at the pod situation. They get mad at the disposable situation. And as much as I think they're environmentally, not great, the disposable side of things, you got to remember that we're here to get people off durries.
Right.
And the average smoker, like my fucking dad, is not interested in building an RTA. He doesn't. Plenty of older boomers are into that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that age bracket isn't into the hobby stuff.
Hey.
Hey. But you got to remember that the average smoker, they don't want to watch a fucking YouTube video about, the best way to coil something. They want to go to a corner store or the place where they get their cigarettes, and they want to get something that is going to be a better option and fix a problem, and that is their addiction to tobacco.
Yeah.
And disposables, as much as I think they're damaging and they should be better regulated, and there's certainly a bunch of things that they should be doing better, it's still, and it's pinched a lot of that, rebuildable market. People have gone, I can't be fucked with this shit anymore. I'm just going to go with a refillable pod or a disposable pod. It's still getting people off of smoking, and we can't be angry at people quitting cigarettes with a type of vape that we don't particularly like. There's going to be ups and downs, and I don't think the hobby stuff will ever go away. I don't think rebuildables will ever go away. I think we're seeing better stuff come out. I remember, in 2018, you would get so many rebuildables, and half of them were fucking garbage. You know? I don't get mad and fucking say how much something's shit anymore, because there's just not as many shit products. So it's been condensed. It's been refined to a better standard of rebuildables. And a bunch of that kind of crap rebuildable market is shifted to disposables. So it's changing and evolving. It's the fastest changing industry. There's no other part of, the electronics industry that evolves as quickly as vaping does.
Sam, what was your first interaction with vaping? How did you get to where you are now? And what was your first interaction with vaping?
Very first one I had was like a really shit cigarette type thing, the little cigarette stick with a pre-filled cartridge that didn't have any nicotine in it, and it cost some stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
And it lasted, I don't know, 2 weeks, and then it sat in a drawer. And that must have been around about 2012, 2011. And it wasn't until late 2013. And then I remember I ordered, I did some more research. I went on YouTube. I watched Phil and guys like that. And I bought a Joytech Ego Twist.
Yeah, Joytech.
Joytech Ego Twist with a Kanga. I think it wasn't the sub tank. It was it was something mini. I forget. It was the little mini.
The Pro Tank.
Pro Tank. That's it.
Yeah.
Pro Tank mini with the silica wick.
Yeah.
And I butted out my last cigarette at about 9 o'clock in the morning, sitting on my doorstep waiting for this Joytech and this Kanga to turn up. And I butted it out, and I sort of said to myself, like, I'm going to make this thing work. And I had some what is it, Hang Seng juice? If anybody remembers Hang Seng juice, fucking 24 milligram.
Yeah,
I must have been about 60% PG, and just the most terrible tobacco flavor you've ever had. If you compare it to what we have now, and and it worked. And then I got onto a blueberry menthol, and then I was like, oh well, this has changed the game. I'm on a blueberry menthol. I had some sub tanks, and it evolved very quickly for me. And then mech mods.
Yeah.
And I had some mech mods, and I got into mech mods, and I was like, wow, this is all of that stuff. Back in the day, part of the Facebook groups like Cloud Chasers Inc. and stuff.
Cloud
like
Chasers
that.
Inc.
We're doing hand checks and call out vids, and it was all part of spreading the community awareness and finding people that would help you get the best out of these products, because back then they weren't great. When we look at
they weren't good.
Yeah,
They weren't worthy of a hand check.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe that's the question, right? This is for the old schoolers, people who've been vaping for a long period of time. I mean, 9 myself, but I feel like things were different from us because we kind of came up with the industry. We grew up as it grew up, and so we really didn't have a choice but to kind of be like, oh, okay, we are literally moving on to the next biggest level of innovation, whereas now it's a little bit more fine-tuned,
Oh, yeah. I mean, but the reason we got more airflow on RDAs is because there were a bunch of us in Facebook groups getting our fucking Dremels out and cutting holes in RDA caps because there wasn't enough airflow.
Yeah.
Why these companies went, I think maybe we should make some bigger holes in these things, because we were fucking cutting that shit up, dude.
Yeah.
So it's all been driven by the vapor, and that's why we've ended up where we are, is because the community, the consumers have said, I don't like this, I want more of this. And that's why you get trends. And and some people go, I don't like this, why don't we have that? Well, the market and the industry and the consumer has driven it. It's not been big tobacco, it's not been pharmaceutical companies deciding what we like and what we get out of a product. It's been people in Facebook groups, people in Google Hangouts, vape reviewers, online community saying this works really well and this works like shit. Do more of this and get rid of that. And it's really cool to find ourselves where we are. It's a fucking awesome market now for someone just getting into vaping. You've got so much choice.
Quality products.
Much better quality, much cheaper. I remember I paid for a fucking Innikin. Was it an I Taste SVD?
Yeah, I had one. I still have it, as a matter of fact.
For this thing, and it was crap. By today's
it was.
standards.
It was.
Now you can get a kit that performs way better for fucking $50, $60 here in Australia.
No, it's come way down. I mean, too, if you really think about it, in the beginning, the juices, the e-liquids that were out there, that were the booming e-liquids that were selling like crazy, were the DIY guys that were selling through Facebook groups. It wasn't Cottonwood. It wasn't, these big names. It was Joe Blow's Facebook group page where he's selling, it by the gallon. Sometimes, you could whatever he could put it in, he was going to make. If you wanted it in an old Colorasi, 1-gallon bottle of wine, he would put it in there for you. You know, it's amazing. Tom, do you have a question for the doctor?
Yes, I was reading in chat too.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much kind of similar. Is there a particular device or e-liquid that you find that works best for beginners?
Yes, that's a really good question, because I was hearing about all the mech mods and all the fancy options and the hobby aspect, which is fantastic for some established vapors. But my focus is on getting people off the cigarettes, and generally that involves giving people a choice. And generally they pick the simplest devices. And later on, I tell them later on, if you want to move on to all these other devices, that's fine too. But generally, the most popular model for a beginner is the pre-filled vape pod vapes. So they buy their own pre-filled vape pods and just top them up, replace them as required. And sometimes they'll use refillable pod vapes, which are also quite simple, but that's a bit more complex. In Australia, you have to import your nicotine from overseas and get your device at the shop. And the other one is the disposables. We have all these illegal disposables being sold in Australia, and they're very worrying. But what often happens is it's an opportunity for people to try a disposable, and they'll find that they may never have otherwise tried a vape. They'll go into a tobacconist, they'll get one of these devices, and then they'll use it for a while and say, wow, I've stopped smoking. And they'll come to me and say, I'm using this, and I'll say, well, maybe you should use a proper regulated disposable, and there are some good quality ones. So having those available actually serves a purpose for some people. So the short answer is, generally most people, I show them a range, I show them all the options, and most people choose the pre-filled vape mod pods, and some of them choose the refillable vape pods.
If we could design something specifically for the regulation here in Australia, both a pre-filled pod and or a refillable pod system, would you be behind that?
Yeah, well, I think my focus is on getting people off the cigarettes, and they're the two simplest options that people tend to prefer. Some people like the disposables, although we have some good disposables, but I don't discourage them, encourage them, because there are environmental concerns. But as a transition model, I'm happy for people to do that for a while.
So to piggyback off of Tom's question, then when you sit down with someone who's trying to quit smoking and you're giving them the particular options, do you assess where they are as a smoker at that particular time? And the reason why I'm trying to make the connection here is because you might have someone who sits down and you say, well, how much do you smoke a day? And they go, well, I'm about a pack a day. And you kind of know what nicotine content is in a cigarette. Do you immediately say, okay, well, I think you should out of the gate start with like a 50 milligram sealed pod system, or do you assess it a little bit more fine tuned and say, well, maybe you should just go with like a 36, because I think it's relevancy, right?
Right.
Yeah, look, we tend to not rely on the strength of the cigarettes. That's not a reliable sign of how dependent they are. What we usually go on is the number of cigarettes a day, but more importantly, how soon after they wake up do they have their first cigarette. Right. So if you have it within 5 minutes, you're probably fairly addicted, or within 10 minutes, you're quite addicted. That's a good sign. And you've got to match the nicotine against the device that they choose. So if they choose a pre-filled pod vape, in my book I have all the different types of devices and the sorts of ranges of nicotine people might use for the light smoker and the heavy smoker in those devices. And I think you've got to match that up against their level of nicotine dependence, because that's probably the critical thing, how nicotine dependent they are. And that's based on number of cigarettes a day and on the time to first cigarette.
Yeah. And he does have a section about all that in his book too, Tim.
Yeah, well, you're the only one that got the book, Tom. I don't know how Wisconsin.
I fully intend on getting it. The reason why I was asking is because Australia being forced to go into the prescription model, if that was what doctors were going to be expected to follow, I think where some of the doubt came in for us and how we felt it might not work so well is that the majority of those doctors won't understand or won't be able to prescribe properly,
Yeah.
you know, what might find satisfactory to get them away from smoking. Either underprescribe them, say, okay, well, you know, 24 might be enough for you. Because I mean, we all help each other. You know, when we meet people who are trying to quit smoking, I immediately would do similar to what you do. Is I don't go, oh, go get, you know, some smock mod with a big sub ohm tank and change your coil. Like, I'm not going to send them down that path, because I think that that's a recipe for failure probably more often than it would be, you know, here, try something like a Caliburn or something like that with like a 24 or a 36, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the go-tos I use as well. Yeah.
Quick question. I don't know if you are involved in that whole process with the prescription model there in Australia,
Mhm.
but is there, maybe Paul can answer this question too, is there affiliation with certain companies within that prescription model? I mean, are doctors saying, you know what I'm saying? Like the pharmaceutical company, the sexy, good-looking girl comes in and sells you the Viagra made by Pfizer. Is that happening there as well? It's like,
There's big farmers against vaping, and they put in submissions and they oppose vaping, partly because it competes with their anti-smoking drugs, and also partly because I think it makes people healthy and they sell less drugs. So farmers against vaping in Australia.
okay, so they're
Yeah.
going, they're more likely going to push the patch,
Oh
the,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
gum
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that stuff before they even go into the vaping realm. Okay.
That's right. And when the patient goes to the doctor, that's generally what they're told.
They
I'm a
need
vaper.
they need sexier. I don't know what they're called. What are
What,
those
sales reps?
sales
Right.
reps
So,
that are going into the doctor's offices?
Oh,
Forget the
Come on, Paul,
pens.
put on a nice dress and head on in there and spruik our shit, would you?
That's right,
Oh,
and just give them
come on.
calendars.
Seriously?
I'm gonna have Paul visiting the doctors with some Bogan brews in Salt Nick form and a.
This is our
it's expensive though.
just her breast holding a salt nick.
You need a nice dress there, Paul. All right, do yourself up, make yourself look nice. All right.
Yeah, make yourself
Really?
look nice. Sell that stuff. Oh, that's just.
I mean,
I thought this was Australia, not Thailand.
Oh, I don't know.
You can detail that stuff to doctors with sales reps, but it is very expensive. A couple of the companies have looked at it and thought about going around to doctors and educating them, but it's really expensive. And I don't
mean,
know that there's that budget.
the whole process sounds so corrupt. I mean, it just sounds like it could be easily corrupted. You know what I mean? Not just from the doctor's level, but the pharmaceutical level to the vendor. The whole thing sounds like, I mean, if you had the right amount of money, you could
Here we
persuade
go.
any doctor to prescribe their brand. You know what I'm saying? You can actually go. That's what's scary about it. And then to me, I mean, because I have a cousin that is one of those girls, and she does very, very well. As you know, in that field, she makes over 100K a year, and it just seems like if you have the right model, the right amount of money, the right product, you can persuade any doctor to prescribe whatever the fuck you want. And that's I mean, that's how it comes down to it. It doesn't, I mean, think about the midnight commercial for any product, or any commercial for any medical product. I mean, there is a list of side effects that makes you think to yourself, do I really want to fucking try this? You know, I'm going to get no erection. My heart might come out of my chest. I might grow a third nipple, all this stuff. And yet it's still out there. That product is still available to the general public. And here we have a product that works, that is working for, I don't even know the number anymore. Is it 41 million vapors worldwide? Something like that?
68 million.
No one's growing a third nipple. Everyone's still getting an erection. Everybody still has their hair. Nobody has popcorn lung. You know, there's 12 years of statistics and studies out there. Why is this all being ignored?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not because of the evidence. The evidence is clear. It's for all the other
It's a
reasons that we
mixture,
talk
it's
about.
such a mixture of corruption. There's more than one reason why, it's different in each country,
Yeah.
In the US, I think it's much more pharmaceutical driven. In Australia, I think it's much more cigarette tax driven. They're so addicted to that government tax they make on cigarettes that it's so hard for them to say, you know what, we're actually going to put our profits, second to public health. Whereas in the US, I think those pharmaceutical companies, as well as obviously the whole the agreements that these states made and the bonds that they sold and everything else, it's a similar thing. It's slightly different, but there's a variety of different reasons why different countries, in Asia, for example, a lot of the places the government owns the tobacco industry.
Right.
So in places like the Philippines and Japan, the government flat out owns the tobacco company. So they're like, why would we promote vaping
Yeah.
when we own the tobacco companies and we make all of that money? So it's different and indifferent, but it always comes back to the governments and in the US, the pharmaceutical companies, the money that they're making versus the public health benefits. And for them, it's we're going to go with the money. We're going to say, fuck public health. We want the money. It's really sad. Yeah. And of course, Australians are, government, politicians in Australia are so scared of doing something that is the right thing to do that might be a hard pill to swallow for the people, the public at first.
But they're elected by you guys, correct, as well?
Oh, of course.
They're elected
But,
officials.
it's
I mean, it's no better than here.
The fear that, the public has because it's been fed a bunch of misinformation.
Right,
And so
right,
the government says, well, if I just go with what people already fear, and that is some vaping, I'm going to stay in my job. I'm going to get elected again. Whereas, if politicians actually said, you know what, I'm going to do what's right for public health, it may not be what the general public believes because they've been fed all this crap. We're gonna end up with a better result, public, health wise. They don't want to. They put in themselves. They're very selfish and self-minded.
It's all about the next election. Yeah, it's the next election.
Exactly.
So, what is the general public perception of vaping in Australia? I mean, do you get a lot of blowback from the average Joe walking on the street?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason I don't vape big cloudy stuff when I'm walking around in public because, it's just not worth that fucking conversation with some dipshit at a bus stop or a fucking outside the pub. Oh, you fucking puppet. It's just fuck off. I'd rather just go about my business and have a vape and not have to explain why my dick is hard and I'm not going to get popcorn lung.
I'm gonna give you an honest question. All right, Bogan. If the sub tank was never invented, would we still be in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Honestly,
not the reason we're here.
Well, it's kind of the stepping stone to why it got to this point. It's the clouds, baby clouds, what started all this.
It's not at all.
You don't think so?
It's not. I think people get way too caught up on, is it an exploding battery in a mech mod that brought us here?
No, I wouldn't go there.
Battery, is it the guy blowing clouds at the bar? I don't think it is. I think it's the spread. I think it's the explosion of vaping in general that has, pissed off people that have vested interests. And the Karens that say, oh, what about the children? They were always going to be, what about the children?
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's not, and that's what I mean. Sub tanks are not what kids are using in schools.
Yeah. Right.
No, they're not. They're not. It's
so sub tanks certainly did contribute to the huge backlash that America felt because of these, youth vaping epidemics that they keep, parading. Even though the evidence shows that, very few youth and teens actually vape and, the smoking rates in teens are lower, if anything, because of vaping, so it was, I don't think it's any one thing. I don't think you can say that it was the dudes doing tricks on Instagram. I think those things maybe got the attention of mass media, but they were always going to find that, the exploding battery video and go with that. If it wasn't that, it was going to be something else.
Yeah. Quick question for the doctor. I have one for you, doctor. I am a new patient. I walk into your office. I smoke 2 packs a day. I have a stressful job. What milligram of e-liquid are you going to recommend me?
I
Well, it
recommend
depends on
whiskey.
Depends on what device you're using, of course. If you decide to go with a pre-filled pod, I'd probably recommend 50. We have 59 milligram per mil, and have the option of going down if that's too strong. But nicotine salt. So, but if it's a Caliburn, it would probably be a lower concentration, maybe 35. Generally, it's better to have a higher concentration than a lower one because we know that people titrate. If you give them something too low, they just suck more and more.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, it's based on the device, on the level of nicotine dependence. I mean, for some people, the hand-to-mouth ritual is just really important, and for other people, the nicotine is really important. And I think I always ask people to try and get a sense of how important that ritual is. And for some people say, oh, that feeling of the smoke and taking the cellophane off the packet and just opening the box.
You're right. It's crazy. It's like a whole thing.
The whole thing. And that for some people, that's just critical. And nicotine is less important. So I might lower the nicotine if that seems to be less.
Do you give them a long-term, say, regimen? Do you say, okay, well, I'm gonna recommend 50 for now because you're a pretty heavy smoker, and that probably will give you the best start out of the gate starting point. But do you say, like, okay, maybe in like 2-3 months, see if you can't work your way down to 36, or give them an alternative?
Yeah, with a new smoker, I'd normally want to see them.
I like Baker there.
I'd want to see them within a few weeks to help them to make that next transition. And it depends on each patient, but perhaps a few times over the next six months to get it right. And then we encourage all vapers to try and stop vaping if they can, but of course only if they're confident of not going back to smoking.
Right.
So I'm very much into harm reduction. If that's working and it's keeping you from cigarettes, of course you should keep doing it. There's no question about that. Whereas, in Australia, unfortunately, the medical establishment says, well, everyone should stop it. Maybe use it to stop, but then, stop it as soon as you can. And I think that's really going to be
a quick question there from one of our viewers there, Doctor. Yeah. Doctor. Hello, Doctor. Hello, Doctor. No, it's an old joke. You know that joke.
God, exactly. Anyway,
can you read it?
Sorry, I'm reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to read it, but yeah, if you can't see it.
Science best read Australian government health authorities. Oh, I don't think we can reach it. We've put submissions in regularly with the best available evidence. I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
I really think it's a waste of time.
Vote.
Yeah.
Tell your fucking representative that if they're not pro vaping, you're not voting for them. That is the biggest. That's the only thing they're going to listen to, because at the end of the day, the whole reason that we are here and the position that they have taken is based on the fact that they don't want to be not re-elected. So the only way we're going to reach them, and it's like that comes back to that "we vape, we vote" slogan that we've been going on about for fucking years. It is, these cunts are not going to listen to the science, so make them listen with your vote.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree entirely. And I have my chat in my book. I talk about what can we do to change things, and it's not about the evidence. It's about telling all your friends who smoke, all your friends who don't smoke, telling your doctor that this has worked for you, going to visit your parliamentarian, and we need to build community support. And I remember Grover Norquist was in Australia a couple of years ago, and he said, once we reach 20 million vapers, we'll have enough political power to make the.
We've been saying that in the US for a while.
For anybody that's not in Australia, we only have about 25 million people in Australia.
That's true.
But it is about political power. It's about a mass movement and about political power. So I agree entirely with the Bogan. Yeah.
I have a question.
Tommy boy.
How can we combat here in the States, the commercials talking about toxic metals in the lungs when you're vaping?
Well, if your coil is recommended at 65 watts, don't fucking turn it up to 150 and try to vape with it. It's pretty simple. I mean,
but you know as well as I do, John, that there's
it's
all kinds of people now jumping on TV with the Truth Initiative.
Well, that's kind of a good question, Tom.
Reject, sorry.
Saying, why are they doing that type of testing? Why are they taking a coil that is regulated for 65 watts and then turning it up to 150? And of course you're going to get, I mean, there's nothing you can do in life that if you don't take it to its max, that's going to give you a different result.
It's the same reason why you can have climate change research come out and say that there is no climate change. It depends on who's paying for the research.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You get the answer you want. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
It's changing the science or what they're putting out in documentation to suit the narrative at that point in time.
Yeah.
That's the first part to it. The second part to it is we know that there are certain metals now within vaping that shouldn't be used. Bottom line. When we saw the first studies come out on stainless, everyone thought, what the hell are we doing playing with stainless?
Yeah.
It's probably one of the cleanest vapes. Then we had science coming out on nichrome 80. That was another study. We had the one that kills everything is the study on nickel. Yes, unless it's unless it's temperature controlled like titanium, don't use it. Bottom line, that's how it works.
Well, it was misused. That's what they've been doing.
That's what they've been doing to people.
Yeah, it's misused material.
But the actual testing apparatus, and I'll reach out to Phil Bassard on Dimitri on this one because they just visited a full-blown manufacturing facility in France that from start to finish, from the nicotine extraction to finished liquids to all the testing parameters of all the different devices and coils with a smoking machine that they'd actually created, not something that was designed specifically for combustibles.
Right.
Yet the rest of the testing was that, where they were pushing coils above and beyond the limits for a start. Secondly, once you get to certain temperatures, you will change the chemistry of a liquid. So other parameters will come out and other chemicals will be formed or reformed. That is what's been going on. The bullshit that has been flying out of some of these agencies is just ridiculous. But when you look at true testing, like a true testing protocol, you will get the results that we've all been looking for. Yeah. But if you push them with 10-second, well, how many of us can rip like 10 seconds on a cloud machine? No, don't go there, Sam. Yeah, he's doing 10 seconds.
I got to like 5, dude. And
see,
I don't even think I could do 5.
No, see, that's completely unregulated, and 100% you cannot do it. The parameters that they're put in play,
not realistic.
For what they're, well, it's not.
I could do 10 seconds. Thanks to the Bogan, I can do 10 seconds.
Oh, here we go. But what I'm saying is they're not allowing the coil to cool down again before it's reheated. Like 10-second rip with a 30-second cool down time, it's impossible. You look at what's being formed within the chambers and the chemistry behind it. It doesn't add up. None of this adds up. And this is where the problem is. Farsalinas put out an amazing study on flavors and like temperatures and metals for that matter. And that was all overlooked. Oh, here we go. 10 seconds. No, this isn't 10-second time.
But yeah, can I just add to that that the research comes out with a certain statement or a claim or a
I
finding.
blew in my camera, son of a bitch. I did it, Tim. I did it, Tim.
Okay. But so the research comes out with something, and then the media then takes it a step further, and makes it into something particularly alarmist and sensational, and that's what people read. And it's not always what, and often they have caveats within the study. They say, well, we did do this and we did do that, and you can't interpret it that way. But the media ignores that, and the media releases are always often misleading.
Well, I think that that's the part that infuriates me the most is that, you know, these paid for funded studies who obviously take a device and push it beyond its limits to a point where we would never use that device that particular way, and we're all different anyway beyond that. Yeah. I mean, you know, time in between a pull or how long we pull or the wattage we vape at, but it infuriates me that in effect, anti-organizations can throw out whatever evidence they want to willy-nilly and just say there's metals in this and that's gonna happen to you and the risks are so great. Whereas on the vaping side of the community, we're not allowed to talk about the health benefits or stand behind those particular bits of information and truth that we know. We can't endorse that. And that's forbade, right? But everybody else can just, wet noodle disease and, all these other things that they can substantiate. That makes me the most infuriated about the whole thing is that stands, but our truth is just, you're not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah.
No, but now it's come down to groupthink and group speak. Yeah. Okay, that's what's going on within the industry behind the scenes.
Yeah.
With the organisations now that are trying to, throw us under the bus for a start. Yep. Second to that, they're so well funded, we're not. But we have one thing on our side for a change, and that is real science and real data. Data sets now will win this war at the end of the day. Simple as that. If you can prove that there is a pathway from start to finish of manufacturing of a liquid, all the components in said liquid, the manufacturing of the nicotine, and all the studies, like up to 50 to 100 studies of coils and devices associated with said liquid, you will win.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, Dr. Colin, are you limited to what you can say there in Australia as far as vaping, or you're open? You're just as a consumer. To your patient.
Well, I was just going to say, in writing my book, I was very careful to get legal advice, because we're very restricted what we could say.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, like for $850 an hour, my lawyer went through the book and said, no, you can't say this. You can't give the story of that doctor saying she helped her patients. You can't say, there's so much that I had to take out. So there's that. And am I limited in what I can say? Look, as long as I'm basing it on the evidence, I can say it.
You can back it up, then you're all good.
Yeah, if you can back it up, you're all good. But you have to be careful.
Right. Do you fall into that same category, Bogan, when you're doing a YouTube review?
Well, yeah, to a certain extent. I can't make claims that vaping is safe, because we know that there's still a 5% gap there. But I don't really make a lot of claims. I can talk, because I'm reviewing a product. I can talk about whether I think it performs well or it doesn't perform well, the quality and all the rest of it. That's all just an opinion. But because I'm not making a lot of health claims, or I'm not really making any health claims other than it's a safer alternative. It's better than smoking. I'm pretty safe. I don't really get into any areas that could be open to interpretation.
Yeah, you got to be a freaking lawyer just to do a YouTube video nowadays. I got banned. I got a strike for having Russell Crowe saying, "Are you not entertained?" Just a sound clip, not a video, Just a
Yeah.
sound clip of him
Wow.
saying, "Are you
Yeah,
not
it's-
entertained?"
It's pretty fucked, man. The way that
It-
they're hitting the creators.
I want to get into the collaboration with other companies with you, Bogan. Has that been fun? Has that been fun for you?
Oh, of course.
The first one. Let's go to the first one. Were you excited the first one, or were you petrified?
The first one, I mean, obviously you're nervous with any release of a
Yeah.
product that you've designed, because if people don't like it, then it's
My
not
name
going to
is
sell
on it.
well, but also you're damaging your reputation. But it's why I've always been pretty selective about who I work with, and I've been very controlling about what comes out, how it comes out. I don't let China sort of push me around in terms of
Right.
how things are going to be done. There's been some fuck ups here and there with bits and pieces, but nothing that's really been particularly bad. And that, I think, comes down to just sort of judging your partner. I've got tons of companies that have wanted to work with me over the years that I've just not been interested in because of various reasons on how they conduct themselves or what they've released. I just try to work with companies that I think have a decent quality control and have decent customer service, so that we can make sure we put out a product that it is good, and if there is a problem with it, then they fix it.
I'm gonna let the other guys jump in, but I'm kind of one real quick question. When you are collaborating with these companies, do you have a set price that is in your mind that you want to stay at? Or do you say, I want to
For the
build
retail price?
Right. I always
It's
curious
generally
of that.
Generally we're making a product that is in line with other, so if it's an RDA with a company like Dovpo or Vandy Vape, then they want to, as much as I want to, make sure that it's going to be around the price of other Chinese made RDAs or RTAs.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had some say in that process. Like,
Not really. I'm involved in, there's certain
Just-
things I'll suggest doing this and suggest doing that, and they'll explain, that's going to push up the retail price, or no, we can do that. That's going to fall into our price range. So there's limits, but it's really it's limited by the market more than it is by the company that I'm working with, because you want to make sure that you're not putting out a product that's way more expensive than competitors.
Right, because I always wondered that, because granted, I get it. A name is a name and is worth whatever it is worth. So I always wondered how much of the involvement that you guys as creators of these products had in the retail sale price of it. I'll take Tony B, for instance, with the Pulse. I mean, his whole goal in the beginning with that Pulse was, hey, I want to introduce squonking to this market, and I want it to be affordable. And that's what he went into when he started designing with Vandy Vape. Vandy Vape at the time. He said, hey, I want to introduce squonking to this whole community. And for once, I want it not to be some $350 stab wood mod that no one can afford, or doesn't have to get into a raffle.
But companies like Vandy Vape were never going to make that product. They were only going to make a product that is affordable, and that's why he chose to work with Vandy Vape. It's why I choose to work with Dovpo, because I think that their end product, take, for example, the Odin. I think the quality on the Odin is better than a lot of other, 200-watt mods. And it's not super expensive. It's affordable, but it's good quality. So, that's why and Tony's done a good job, I think, as well, of selecting companies to work with that fit his brief and want to make a similar thing and are able to do what he wants to do.
That was I always wondered how much involvement you guys had in the price structure of the final product when it came.
I mean, it's
your name. It's your name.
Absolutely. It's more market, and we're not going to release something that it works quite easily. The pricing side of things is probably the least tricky.
Right. Well, because you kind of know your fan base.
But the market, nobody's going to pay for a fucking $200 squonk mod from Vandy Vape. That's just not going to happen. That's not their brand. That's not their name.
Come on.
So it was only ever going to be something that they felt would sell, based on their market's expectations.
Right. Excellent.
The hardest part is, pushing them the right direction and making sure that they don't steamroll you on certain aspects, because China will
Yeah,
try and cut
you
corners
want, yeah,
where they
once
can.
China produces something, you're kind of, I mean, I understand kind of a little bit about the regulations there in China. I mean, you can't get your own lawyer. You have to get a lawyer over there in China to sue China. And so it's a process. So I always wondered how much of yourself you're putting into a product that is going to have, basically your name on it.
No, and that's
Eh,
why I've worked with companies, and I've been careful and lucky enough to select companies that I've managed to put my stamp on whatever it is we're doing enough. There's obviously some help and influence from them, but at the same time,
Right,
nothing gets put out without me saying I'm happy with that. Whether it's
right,
their
right.
idea or my idea, I'm signing off on, on most things. So
Yeah.
it works.
Now that I have one more question, I swear to God, I'll let you guys. But when you get that product and you have it, I'm okay. You're Vaping Bogan. You know what type of vapor you are. You know what type of device you want to come out with. Do you send that information to them? I mean, or I'm assuming they know the type of product that they're going to design around your name, because the type of vapor that you are, your YouTube channel, stuff like that. Do you have that, like that list where you say, okay, whether it's an RTA, whether it's an RTA, whether it's a mod, this is Bogan. This is what Bogan's about. This is what I'm looking for. And do they work around that with you,
Yeah,
or okay?
it's a bit of, I might have an idea, they might have an idea, and then we go, all right, well, I like this aspect of your design. I want to do this. For instance, the aesthetics of the blotto were vastly different to what they had in their mind. And I said, well, if we're going to do this, we need to come up with something that represents, what I'm about. And I think the whole bottle cap design fits the whole brand nicely, but it's also aesthetically pleasing. So it works for them, and everybody's happy. So, there's I definitely sort of get to take the lead on most stuff, but I don't have the engineering background that a lot of their guys do. So I'll say, can we do this? And then they'll go and talk to their engineers, and they'll work out, is that possible? Can we do that? And so it's a working relationship that sort of ends up with a product that hopefully everybody's happy with.
Tim, go.
No, my question would have been, it was kind of going back to the beginning stages. My question for Bogan was, what was your motivation to get into vape reviews and stuff like that? Like, what angle were you gunning for? Like,
just
you're
wanted
like,
to make
I'm just going to
a good
review the
joke
fuck
video.
out of everything. Like, I want to do juice and mods. I mean,
No, I
obviously
never
you have
wanted
a
to do juice
passion to want to do that.
because juice is too subjective, and different devices taste different, and different things, and different. It's just so subjective. And I saw other people doing juice reviews, and it never got the views that hardware does, because people are just, they'll buy a bottle of juice, they'll give it a try. If it's their flavor profile, they'll give it a go. They don't necessarily need to go and look at a review on it. And to be honest, I don't necessarily always take an opinion on a juice as seriously as I would take an opinion on a piece of hardware, because there's less subjective things with hardware. So I was never really interested in doing juice. To be honest, the first video I ever did was meant to be just for a laugh, just a bit of a joke video.
The first one, 2004.
We took vape reviews and we put a real Bogan Ocker type spin on it. And then it got a bunch of views, and a few other reviewers gave it a shout out. And I thought, well, I got to do another one. And and I just kept doing them because people kept watching them. And it wasn't probably for a year or even 2 years that I was like, you know what, maybe I could actually turn this into a successful following, and eventually, maybe make a living out of it. It was never that was never my intention. I kind of fell into it. I didn't think that I would ever be able to be where I am now. It was never, I want to be a vape reviewer and, go to vape expos and make a living out of the industry. It was never about that. It was a much more, just a silly fucking video. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. And I said, well, I can't stop now. People are watching. There's new subscribers coming on board. I can't walk away from that. That seems kind of unfair on those that have been enjoying the content, and also kind of a dumb thing to waste. So I just kept doing them. And then it got to a point where it was just taking over my life. And I was like, I've got to try and find a way. Maybe I can scale back my day job and make some money off of videos. And, that's when Patreon sort of started and things like that.
We need a collaboration between you two. Dr. Colin and the Bogan.
I would love to, but I think it's a conflict of interest for Colin if he starts promoting vape products and he's a doctor. I don't know how it works for Colin, but I feel like
I
don't
don't
think
mention
he
any
can.
brand.
He's got to consult his lawyer first. He's got to consult. his lawyer.
I don't think it works so easily for Colin.
I think
I wouldn't be much of a business partner either. I make $3.40 from each book, so
well, not even thinking.
That's a better
of it.
return than my RTAs, Colin. That's not bad.
Yeah, we're talking China. I think that is the type of YouTube channel that is missing. I think the reviewer, the doctor YouTube channel, where I'm giving away $1 million idea right here, boys, if you're listening. But the reviewer that has the doctor's perspective in the review. I think
so I do the video and then I go, now let's see what Colin has to say. Colin, what do you think?
Exactly. I think Colin would be able to dissect the product, tell you the quality of type of vape that you're going to get from it. Is it going to be efficient vape product for the newer vapor? I think it would be a great collaboration with you two once a week. Once a week, you pick a certain product, a mouth. It would probably have to be I don't know how many mouth to lung devices you review on your channel that much, but
it's mostly hard, mostly rebuildable stuff.
I think it would be a great channel where you actually have a actual doctor with an actual degree breaking down the product as a doctor.
I love the idea. I think it gets dicey for Colin though as a
I want 5%. I want 5%. Damn
but
it.
also the other issue is that most of the products I recommend are beginner models, and I don't Sam's so much into those.
Doc, can you just imagine the clientele you would get into your office? Hey, I saw you on Bogan's page. I thought I hit you up. You're my new doctor.
No. Paparazzi hanging outside.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No, Colin would get slammed.
Vaping Bogans.
Yeah. No,
I mean that's the thing.
Non-commercial.
I get, the vape reviewer, the promoter, the photographer, but your face should be on the cover of Vaping magazine. I'm sorry, you wrote a book. And now, if your face is not on the cover, I'm calling out Vaping magazine, but they should do a spread on you. An article about you because you wrote a book that
isn't there like a vapor of the year? Colin should be getting vapor. Well, he's not a vapor, but
he's not a vapor, but he wrote. I mean, that's what makes it even more special. I mean, it's
absolutely.
We're very limited to the types of people that are actually promoting this product, and to have, Dr. I always fuck up the name, Fuzio, whatever his name is, but Fasolino and yourself. You should be on the cover of Vaping magazine. Your book should be out there. I think every vapor should have this book. Every
doctor should have this book.
Every
doctor in Australia should have this book.
That's
my big push, is to get these books into the hands of doctors, because it's a crash course in everything that is vaping, from what product you should recommend to those arguments with people that are naysayers to where and how you navigate the prescription model. It's everything that a doctor needs to know. So I think as much as smokers need it, I think our health professionals need to read this book.
And not just in Australia, worldwide.
Read the book and then give it to your doctor.
That's it. I think, exactly. That's the thing I was touching on in the beginning, is whether this book was something I could hand to my aunt, that was complaining about vaping, and say, hey, read this. And then come back to me. And then, because a lot of times we've talked about it, a lot of times we're ready to fight back with statistics and stats and articles that we read, but for some reason it's not the same as something that is written in a book. I'm sorry, there's still people that are out there that open it, that qualify that book as something special. It's written, it's in a book, it must be important. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just coming from Tim, Bill, or Tom, or myself, just, here's a book, read it. These are the articles. These are the statistics. This is what you need to know about vaping. This is how it's helping the general populace. So I don't know. I actually follow a few people from Vaping Magazine, but I can't remember her name. She writes articles for her, but you need to be on the cover of Vaping Magazine. I think there should be a full article on you on this book, and I think every vapor should have this book. Every vapor should have this book. They should read it, and they should hand it to someone that is either a smoker and, God forbid, a non-smoker. A non-smoker. Without a non-smoker, we're not going to win this battle. I'm sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
We talked about the numbers don't add up. The non-smokers outnumber the smokers, and if we don't have them on our backs when it comes to legislation, we're screwed. We're screwed.
I have two things to say.
Go, Tommy, go.
One, Morgan is absolutely right. This book is a great present for your doctor.
Yes.
Buy it and give it to him.
Ooh, good idea.
Worldwide. It's not my idea, it's Morgan's.
Yeah, we'll
Leave it to the other
take
Wisconsinites.
credit for it. Morgan's, yeah.
I ain't taking credit for nothing, man. She'll come up here and whoop my ass. Don't fuck with a Wisconsin girl.
The other thing I'd recommend, sorry, just before I can jump in there, the other thing I'd recommend is it could also be very useful for members of Parliament.
Yeah,
and that's something we're doing in Australia, and I know it's being done in Canada. So I think there is a place in getting the evidence to them as well.
Yeah, somebody gift this book to Nancy Pelosi. Somebody gift
I don't
this
think she knows
book
how to read.
to-
And my second is, Bogan, do you have any products coming up that you would like to tease?
Ooh, a little first.
Well, I mean, I just did my show and tell video for a couple of new Blotto variations. So we have the Blotto 1.5, which is a follow-on from the original Blotto, and we have the Max, which is a 28 mil version of the Blotto. So it's a bigger deck, more airflow, shorter stature, and all the stuff that people loved about the original, but with a bit more. So go and check out my show and tell.
We have. I'll have links for. But how has that been working with Dalpo?
It's been good. It's been really slow the last year and a half with coronavirus. I think Tony touched on his pulse thing being slowed down massively. It was supposed to be out a long time ago. Like my Blottos were supposed to be sort of back in May or the middle of this year at the latest was when I was hoping to get those out, and now they are coming out in December. So it's coronavirus has slowed things down, but working with Dalpo has been really good as it has in the past. So we got them out, we got them happening, we got there in the end. But like everything in the last 12 24 months, things have been happening, but they've been affected.
Yeah.
And infected.
Affected. Yeah.
The infections have had effects on
my mod got its booster shot. My mom got his booster shot.
So it's been slower going, but we got what we wanted to do done.
Was the Odin the first mod you came out with? No, right? Because it was a mech.
No,
mod,
I did the Bonza mech. The Odin was the first regulated device with Vapors Cloud and Dalpo together, and that's been really, really good. It's continued to be really popular. So
I gotta ask you. I gotta go into the Odin. How much of that was you?
Like a good portion. I mean, it was one of those things that it was more me and Vapors Cloud coming up with the design, and then Dalpo doing the manufacturing.
And thank you for a good door. Thank you for a good door.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I really, really hit home on was we got to make sure this door is solid. It's got to have a good latch.
It stays
closed. Got to stay closed because if we're going to do a bottom opening door, it's got to be fucking solid. So, that was one thing that I really pushed because, I see so many flabby doors in mods.
I got about 10 of them.
Flabby door.
I won't say the name, but there's like 10 of them back there I won't touch anymore.
Yeah. So the door was one thing that I had a fair bit of influence on, was making sure that it sat closed.
Quick, I'm going to throw it back to the doctor real quick here.
I gotta go.
Oh, do you gotta go? Bogan,
yeah, I gotta go. I gotta get some Christmas. Gotta get some.
Don't forget my present. Don't forget my present.
With my mum tomorrow, German style. So I've got to get to Costco and get some Christmas stuff done before.
Whoa! There's Costco. There's Costco in Australia.
Costco in Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
They do the best lamb chops. They do the best lamb chops. Big fucking.
I know.
Inch thick lamb chops.
Shush.
Before you go, let my guys say goodbye to you real quick, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Bogan. Thanks for being on the show. been a big follower ever since a long time ago. So it's been a pleasure to actually meet you in person, and glad you're still doing what you do. Keep it up.
Thank you, dude. Thanks very much. No, I appreciate
Paul,
you guys having me on.
the
And
fellow Aussie. You see him
Thank
all.
you.
You talk to him, Tom. Fucking shit.
I fucking hear enough from Paul as it is.
Oh, fuck off.
Do you two share a Foster's together? No, I'm
He's
just-
fucking messaging me at 1:30 in the morning. Did you see this? Can you come on a show?
we're glad you're here.
Really, a Foster's?
I'm just
See,
kidding. I'm
look,
just kidding
and
with the
Bogan's
Foster's.
t-shirt now. No,
I got the Bogan t-shirt.
Yeah,
see?
Colin's rocking my
Look,
merch. If you want, speaking of products, if you want to pick up Bogan merch, you can get it from Obey Robot Store.
I'll have all the links. Yeah, everything.
Colin's repping the Bogan shirt.
Rep that Bogan shirt. I will be ordering one.
It's a nice change from his regular blue stripes.
Hey, Bogan, let me just say, I'm glad it's not fucking black. Everything is black in the vaping thing. He's wearing a shirt.
We've got black, don't worry, but we've also got gray.
I mean, perfect. Everything is black. Tommy boy, goodbyes to Mr. Bogan.
Thank you for coming on. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and thank you for everything that you do in the industry. It's
No, I
been a
appreciate
genuine
it.
pleasure
Yeah.
having you on here.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Again,
No,
thank you,
for having me
Bogan. We appreciate you taking the time to join our show. And again, thank you for all you do for the industry and for the community. And we appreciate it. We really
on.
appreciate it. We
What I'm
want you
doing.
to let you
Thank
know.
you guys. You guys keep it up as well, because it's these sorts of chats and these sorts of educational videos that keep things moving and keep the push back against the naysayers. And a big thank you to Colin for
Yes.
what he does with his patience, but also his book and what he does in advocacy. Is far greater than what I do in advocacy. So keep it up. Thank you very much, Colin. I appreciate you.
Thanks, thank you.
Thank you.
now we get to put the thumb screws on Colin.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a Merry
Thank you,
Christmas
Bogan.
and a Happy
Merry
New
Christmas,
Year. Everybody
Merry-
stay
You too.
safe and
Yeah.
stub on your dicks and your ticks off. All right.
Late.
Good to see you, Sam.
You too, guys.
Yeah. All right.
Now,
Any
now,
other
n-
Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
now
Go
the
ahead.
thumb screws are going to be put on Colin.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm joking. No, I'm joking.
No. I had a couple.
It's
Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
no, it's actually great to have you on the show.
It is.
These lads brought me into the mix a few months ago, and they reached out to me and they said, "Well, who can we have a guest right, over the next few months?" And I said, "We'll do something special for Christmas." And I think we've done that for everyone around the world. A lot of people wanted to meet you, Colin. A lot of the other people wanted to meet Sam as well, like openly. But we would like you back on this show in the new year to go over what is happening behind the scenes in the TGA here and what is happening with regulation and reporting dates for the doctors, if that's at all possible.
Sure. Happy to discuss that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that'll have to be a very well thought out show and a lot of questions before, like put to you before the show, and what we can and what we can't say going forward.
Yeah.
And you're pushing it towards the ACCC. That gives us a little bit of light into where we can push this
Yeah.
as an industry.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
our conversation as well that we
Yeah.
had the other day. And
Yeah.
I can then elaborate on that in the new year, but I'm not allowed to right now.
Yeah.
Hush, 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 hush.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is there a collaboration of doctors worldwide on this vaping? Is there something like that? Because I don't think I've seen anything like that with doctors from America, doctors from Australia, Asia, getting together, and not the WHO.
Cochrane Library.
There is a listserv run by Clive Bates.
Yes.
In which there's several hundred of us that actually receive regular communications and share information. It's not just doctors, but a whole range of other health professionals as well. So yes, we do communicate that way internationally. So that is good.
I mean, I last month or prior to this, last month, I spent a lot of time at the hospital, and I was shocked. I was really shocked to see how many nurses and doctors were actually, well, here you have to go all the way out to the sidewalk. You're not allowed to vape on hospital property. So they would they had to walk all, so you knew who they were, but they were walking out to the sidewalk by the bus station to vape, and they were all in scrubs. So I knew they were employees of the hospital. And I think I saw maybe out of 20 people, maybe 2 that were actually smoking cigarettes, and the rest were all vaping. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, people are driving by, they see this too. So obviously they have to see that the health profession, a majority of the health profession at this hospital prefers vaping over smoking. But why are they not seeing that? I don't understand, because like I said, out of 20, 2 of them were smoking a cigarette. The rest either had a disposable or some sort of mod device that they were vaping on.
Yeah, but look at that. Like I said before, it doesn't come down to the evidence. I think the evidence is very straightforward, and they're hearing the other story all the time from the media and the FDA, and the CFTK, and so on and so on.
I don't need a midget hooker for Christmas.
Oh, fuck's sake. Really?
Well, let me think about this for a second.
No, later.
John, I have a question for the doctor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last week, when we announced that you would be on our show, I don't remember who it was. They challenged us to come up with a question that you probably have not been asked since you've been doing all your interviews.
Yeah.
Well, I have that question because I don't always ask.
You don't have an erectile
questions.
dysfunctional question, do you?
No.
Okay.
It's nothing medical related. It's nothing vape related. It's just a question. What do you do in your spare time?
Oh yeah. What are the hobbies? What are your hobbies?
I work really far too hard. It's the only way I can get everything done. No, I love playing. I play tennis twice a week.
Nice.
I go kayaking. I have 3 grandchildren. So that's probably about it. But I work far too hard. That's probably my biggest failing. So good question. And the other question that I'm often asked is, no, I've never smoked and I've never vaped.
Right.
That's the one I am often asked.
I have links to. I know it's a huge fucking link. You can blame fucking Amazon for the huge ass link, but this is where I got my book. It will be here either tomorrow or the next day. I'm not sure, but also you can get it on the website. Correct, Colin?
Yeah, you can get it from Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and
for the U.S. customer, it's probably best to get it through Amazon. Correct?
Amazon, yeah. That's right. And there's several others on my website. There's a list of all the different places that have it.
And a quick question for.
I'm sorry. Just finally, the ebook is coming. I hope next week.
Good.
I was just about to ask that question.
Okay. All right.
I just have to review that today after this show, and I'll approve it, and we'll get that up as soon as we can.
I got a question you never been asked. If this book becomes one of those audio books, will you use your own voice, or will you go get somebody with a better voice?
Is it worth making an audio book? I don't listen to them myself. I love podcasts, but is it worth an audio book?
Yes, it is, Colin, for people that are blind and have people that have any disability.
Samuel L. Jackson. Get Samuel L. Jackson to do your book.
Oh,
listen, motherfuckers. Listen, motherfuckers. I'm going to tell you.
Listen, I told you I make $3 per book, so I'm not getting Samuel Jackson.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but you want to know the really funny part is he vapes.
He does.
You can get Bogan to read the book.
Fun fact about Sam Jackson: him and I share a birthday.
Oh no shit, really?
What?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
And
don't
also,
know. I don't know if there has to be a specific amount of book sales to go into audio, but yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Who, if you had to pick someone to do the audio book, who
I
would
would
you
have to
pick?
do it myself. I would pick me.
You'd pick
I
you.
think it's more.
Yeah.
I think
it's
that's the
more-
perfect combination right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it has to be
Correct.
authentic, and I think I can sell it better in terms of getting the message across.
I think it's more genuine if it came from you rather than having
Right.
some voiceover or someone to try to,
Yeah, yeah,
wash it over and make it sound a certain way. I think it came from the heart. You leave it there. You know what I mean? You speak it in your own words. I think it's more genuine.
yeah. I think so.
And
I might just
audio-
point out I have the same birthday as George Washington.
nice.
Just how's that for a little American touch?
Yeah.
There you go. That's how
There you go.
that's how it should happen.
An
That's how it
audiobook
needs to go
would be
down.
would be great for like a long haul truck driver.
Oh no, it'd be. I think it's a great book, and like I said, I have a few contacts over there. I am going to send them the information. I think you should be on the cover of Vaping magazine. I think your book. No, I'm serious.
Yeah, your
I
book
mean,
is amazing, sir.
Well, I think Sons of
I-
Liberty was saying he didn't think it was still around.
there's a couple of them that are still around.
No, there's a few vape mags that are
Yeah, they're
still
still
out there.
they're web based now. You're not actually getting
Yeah.
a paperback anymore, but I think they should do an article on you. I think
thank
you are the type of person that needs to have an article in one of these vaping magazines. I really do. I appreciate everything that the vape reviewer does and the promoters and the photographers that they do all these spreads on and the companies. But you what you have done is a lot different than any of these other ones have done. You put the science together, you put everything in one place for all of us to use to combat the ants and to help the smoker achieve a goal that is really important. And I think an article should be written about you in several vape magazines, not just vaping, but several of them. I really do. I really do. I appreciate that you, because it's not every day. I mean, we've all have doctors. I mean, if I went to my doctor right now, a matter of fact, I remember the conversation with my doctor, and he just laughed. You know, that first time, have you quit smoking, John? And I said, yes. He says, oh, you have? I said, yes, I've been vaping now for a year. I said, I haven't had a cigarette in a year. And he just kind of said, well, that's still smoking.
That's still
And
smoking. Yeah.
I said, how?
Come
How's
back
that
when you
still
really quit smoking. Yeah. We get that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to me, I think an article on you on this book, I think should be done. It should be out there for smokers, non-smokers, and vapors just to read. It just have someone to be proud of in our industry, you know. And I think it's important that your story gets out there and your book gets out there. Paul, tell them to sell, Paul, sell. Paul's dealing in Bitcoins. I think it's a Bitcoin transaction right now.
Sounds very private anyway.
It probably is a Bitcoin transaction. Sell those Bitcoins, Paul. Sell those Bitcoins. Oh, any other questions before we head on out of here? Anybody got anything else for the good doctor?
No.
Yeah. When's the follow-up book?
Ooh.
Well, let's get the first one sold first. I've got to pay that off before I can even think about a new one.
Yeah.
I mean, the trouble is the big publishers would not touch the book on vaping. They said, look,
No.
it's a bit of a niche market and a bit controversial. So it had to be an independent publisher, which means I've forked out quite a lot already for it. So once I've caught up and perhaps got a little bit ahead, then I'll think about a second edition.
That's a good. I forgot to ask you that because that is a big issue as far as publication companies on such a controversial topic, and a lot of them just kind of brushing you off because of that reason. But with the last 2 years, you know, do we want to publish this book? Is this book going to sell? I mean, it must have been difficult for you to find a publishing house.
Well, I went to 2 agents because most of the big publishing houses require you to have an agent. So 2 of them said, look, we're not sure if it's really worth it. You can put it in, and after 6 months, they'll tell you whether they'll take it or not. I thought, below that, I'll just do it myself with an independent publishing agent. But it means you pay them, of course, and I had to employ a publicist to get some promotion and a lawyer to check it all, and flyers and all of that. So there's expense, which is fine because I really want to get this message out there.
Yeah, I have a friend that's published a couple books, and she's gone through that process with me and has talked about it. And one of the things I forgot to ask you was there some things, you don't have to divulge this stuff, but was there certain topics or issues that you have written in the book where the publishing house said, hey, we can't go there?
Oh, no.
No, good, excellent.
But the lawyer said that. The lawyer said, no, you can't.
The lawyers did, okay.
Yeah. That's too risky.
Yeah, she ran into some of those issues as well when she was putting her book out. She was like, well, you can't say that. You can't say this. You can't do that. So there were certain things. There
were certain people I would have loved to have mentioned in the book. But
right.
For various litigation reasons were not mentioned.
Right.
So, no comment.
No comment.
Well, with a lot of the public officials, you can state their names because they are public officials.
Yeah. But you can state evidence. So
right.
This was stated by that person on that date, published here, and that was led to that. So you can be, but you just have to be very careful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just anyone that gets a book published is amazing to me. I am just a horrible writer. I don't know how you could come up. I still don't know how you can come up with, even 100 pages. If someone told me to write something,
I couldn't write a novel. I couldn't write a novel.
The only one in this panel I think that could get away with it would be Tim, because he's just brilliant. I don't know, Paul maybe too, but I think Tim could probably put it. Tim probably could put a.
My mom was a school teacher for 40 years, an English major. I grew up living my life under a red pen.
Tim could write 1,000.
That's the long and short of it.
Tim could write 1,000 pages on the word bullshit, and it would just be
Actually, if Tim writes 1,000 pages on bullshit, I'm going to say that to Greg Hunt, even though now he's stepped away from government. But yeah, I'd love to just send that to him because that's all he's about. Bullshit. Sorry, Colin, I had to say that.
I think it's a mention in my book, but I of course, have to be very polite.
Yeah. Hey, an idea for your follow-up book would be just to actually follow the transition of a vapor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be,
No, we have 15 testimonials in the book.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Individual vapors.
See, I didn't get my book thanks to Amazon. I didn't get my book yet thanks to Amazon.
No, but the stories are quite inspiring. We've got a couple of members of Parliament who's tell their stories, and a well-known journalist, and a well-known, very senior lawyer who tells their story. So it's ordinary people and celebrities. It's
nice.
It's very inspiring reading how people have changed their lives. It's just really has.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I think you should do a collaboration with Bogan on vape reviews. I think that would be friggin' awesome. I think it would be awesome just to have Bogan review a product and then flip it over to Dr. Colin and go, what do you think, Doc? And have him break down. Go ahead, Paul.
Actually, all the devices that RACGP and the AMA are suggesting, and this 20 milligram limit, and the flavors that they're saying, no flavor or tobacco, but try them. And I'd love to see the responses from that video.
I think it would be a great collaboration, them two together. Just once a week, just pick a certain product that applies to the smoker transitioning over to vaping, and have a doctor's perspective on that product. Whether it would be something that's worth their time, and I just think it would be. I think it would be a great freaking video.
Yeah, but again, under Australian law, we can't really advertise.
But he's a doctor.
No, irrelevant. He can't do it.
Oh, okay. See,
if you advertise a product that's on prescription, that's illegal. So you can't even mention brand or a product.
Can
That's
you
it.
say it gets the Dr. Colin seal of approval? Would that get you in trouble?
Yep.
Probably.
Probably.
No, 100% it would.
I can see
John,
you with the
stop trying to
seal.
get the doctor in trouble.
Get the seal
Yeah.
at the end of Bogan's video. Dr. Colin it gets the seal of approval.
We can't do the same shit
I
that
know,
you do in
I
the
know.
US
It's sad. I think
and
it would be a
Australia.
great. I think it'd be a great YouTube video to have both sides of the spectrum, have the reviewer and the doctor, an actual doctor, actually, not promoting the product, but just recommend. Can you recommend the product? Is that the same as promoting it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it would be. Yeah.
So
Well,
here's
Fuck
my
them lawyers.
no, look, here's my final thing. Colin and I spoke about this the other day. And how far are we muzzled here in Australia? Like as for advocates and for doctors that want to do the right thing, we're muzzled, aren't we? Both by the AMA and the RACGP.
Well, they have the dominant narrative, and they have the media on their side, and what they say gets coverage.
Yeah.
It's very hard for us to speak out and be heard. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could work it out. I think if you sat down and figured it all out, I think you could get it to work. Where you don't recommend it. You just, hey, this is. I don't even know the right words to use. I'm not going to get you in trouble, Doc. I'm not going to get you in trouble.
It's very delicate.
I think it would
Very
make
delicate.
a great. I think it would make a great YouTube segment just to have a doctor's opinion on a product, whether it's an open device, closed device, a mod, or a tank, and Just I think it would be great. Again, thank you, Doc, for joining.
100%.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Tom, Paul, and Tim, and of course, Vaping Bogan for joining us tonight. Everybody, I will have the links to everything tonight. Again, it's in the chat. I will put it back in there again. I have Dr. Colin's Facebook page, his Twitter page, his YouTube page, and the Amazon link will be all. I put it all in there at the end of the show, so it'll be right there at the end for you guys to find very easily. Go buy this book, guys. Everything I think everybody on this panel owns is going to own. It will eventually have this book, and I think it's a great book too. Like I said, I have an aunt that is kind of on the cuff. I'm going to hand it to her after I'm done reading it, and have her read it. And she was a nurse for 30 years, and I think she'll get a good perspective of what I've been dealing with, and all of us in the vaping community. So get out there, buy this book. Any last words, my friend, Dr. Colin?
And when you finish it, give it to your doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. Give it. I think that doctors, congressmen. Hey, I think, for 20, you could write that book off if you're sending it to a congressman, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, you can. See, I know my tax laws. I think you can. Everybody, send this book to Nancy Pelosi. She's the most important person on that bill, on that board. Send it to her. Let her get 100,000 copies of this book.
I'd actually like anyone in the United States right now that buys the book to actually put their signature in the front cover and their vaping story and send it to Braja.
Yeah. I'd say send it to Biden, but I don't know if he can read. But
well, there's pictures in the book, so he can look at the pictures.
Actually, get the book for Biden, and in the cover, write. No, I'm not going to go there. Go Biden. Go Brandon. Go Brandon.
No.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you again, Colin, for joining us. Everybody, get out there, buy this book, take a look at it. It is on Amazon. It's pretty quick delivery. I'm sure it'll be even faster after Christmas, of course. I should have it in 1 or 2 days after Christmas. Get out there, get this book, read this book, hand it to someone that is a smoker or a non-smoker, and help this community stay alive, this industry, the community, us, all of us. Anything else, Tom, Tim, Paul?
I'd just like to quickly say Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas with your friends and family. And thank you to Dr. Mendelsohn for coming on our show. And please come back anytime.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, But thank you so much for asking me. It was a pleasure.
One more thing before I go. You ready, Tim, Paul, Doc? You two ready?
What?
Happy birthday
I'm out.
to you. Happy birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Can't hear you.
Happy birthday, dear
Tommy.
Happy birthday to you.
All right.
All right.
Guys, we'll see
Good night,
everybody.
None of
everybody.
you quit your day jobs to become singers.
Okay. See you guys.